Good afternoon. My name is John Orr. I'm the president of the TV POA Board this year. I'd like to welcome everybody to the February board meeting. Couple announcements out of the gate here. I'm assuming everybody saw the announcement of our interim leader for the POA, Mr. Matt Benoit, sitting here now. Matt's been with us since 22, I believe. He started with Public Works Director. And I can tell you from our perspective, Public Works has come a long way in the last 2 years. You know, we're doing things right now that we haven't ever done in the past. We've got customer service surveys being done monthly, efficiency studies underway. They're tracking manpower usage on different activities to know how our labor force is being utilized. There's been a complete reorganization of the Water and Sewer Department to improve effectiveness and efficiency. And then there's also another big study that was done on the leaf collection last year that resulted in big improvements in that area. Much fewer calls and complaints about leaves not getting picked up. So that was a big improvement. But overall, if you saw the continuous improvement presentation in the January board meeting, Public Works was the vast majority of all the continuous improvement savings we had last year. Alone, they represented well over $600,000 of cost out of the business and over a 10% reduction in headcount that just wasn't needed once you streamline the processes in the department. So Matt's done a great job. We're expecting continued great work in this interim role while the board assesses, the permanent leader and then executes a search for that leader. So we're currently getting started. We want to go through the job description and all the roles and responsibilities of that position before we can actually go out and start looking for candidates. So that's where we're at on that. Let's see, so we've got a lot that happened. Again, I'm assuming most people saw the town hall, but there's probably some that haven't. Lots happened in the last 30 days. Board's been extremely busy. I have to thank some of our POA staff that have gone above and beyond during this time, the likes of, Karen and Beth and Judy and obviously Matt, and even Kevin, our legal counsel, who were taking phone calls and answering emails, at 10 o'clock on a Friday night, setting up conference calls on a Saturday. It was a 7-day-a-week ordeal for the last 30 days, quite frankly, and I think we're in a good place now to maintain the level of service in the village that everybody's come to expect while we embark on this venture to find a permanent leader of the POA. One other announcement, you may have seen the tele flash this morning of an incident at Shoda, and I'll ask, I don't have all the details, I'll ask Matt to maybe give a quick update on what happened.
So just real briefly, we had a one vehicle accident at the Shoda Recreation Center. The building was protruded. Put differently, there wasn't a garage there. There is now. At this point, I'm not aware and wouldn't comment on the people who are involved. All I can say at this point is it's closed for today. Hopefully, when I wrap up this meeting, I can get some insight into what we might be able to do as far as the week going forward. But at this point, that's the news I have to offer is we're closed and we will evaluate. today and tomorrow.
Okay, so we've got a new entrance to the facility, I guess. That's about it. I mean, again, I don't know viewership, how many people watch or go to the town halls versus the board meetings, so I don't want to be too repetitive of everything that was said there, but I think I'll leave it at that. We're as I've mentioned before, we're trying to make the board meeting more of a business meeting, what it has always been intended to be, and keep the town hall as more of an information, two-way event where we can communicate and the property owners can communicate back to us. So we're going to be doing a lot less of open forum, if you will, at the board meetings. So what we're going to start out with, typically is open forum for 30 minutes, somewhere in the beginning of the meeting, and then going to have to stop it. We do have hard stops for these board meetings at 4:30. There's somebody that has booked this room pretty much every single month on a Wednesday that has it at 5 o'clock, and the room has to be completely reset. So we do have to work within those parameters. But that's about all the opening comments. I will call the session more to order. We have a quorum. What I'd like to do is ask for approval of the minutes from our January 15th board meeting.
John, I have one proposed change to those. Do you want the motion and then the proposed change?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will move that we approve the minutes of the January 15th, 2025 Tellico Village Property Owners Association Board meeting minutes.
Second? Any comments from the board?
So one change under the president's comments, which I've already given to Karen, second bullet point should read, should a wastewater storage tank be built, it will not be located off of Sequoia Road. Currently, it reads an elevated storage tank, so just a clarification.
Okay.
And then I also gave Karen a clarification under the reserve funding bill of an additional point that I had made in the discussion. I don't need to get into that detail here, she's got it. That's all the changes I saw.
Okay. No other comment? All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended? 7-0. Before we do open forum, we're going to officially pass the update to our open meeting policy. Again, I mentioned at the town hall that this policy was written back in '05, and parts of it were not consistent with our bylaws, and certainly not consistent with how we have operated for the last 6, 7, 8 years. So we updated the policy. It's been posted online for a while now. So I would like to entertain a motion to approve that policy.
I move to approve the new the meeting policy.
Second.
Any further discussion on the board? No, we've talked about it quite a bit. All those in favor? 7-0. With that, we will get to our open forum portion for 30 minutes. Again, in that policy, here's the guidelines that we would expect anybody that wishes to speak to follow. And we have our trusty little timer here. And with that, when you come up to talk, state your name and 30 minutes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon. Joe Bogardus from the Coyote neighborhood. I'd like to thank the Tellico Village Volunteer Fire Department for recently rushing into a smoke-filled village home, ensuring the villager occupants were safe, found the source of the smoke, and extinguished the smoke, and then ventilated the entire premises, allowing these villagers to immediately return to their home. I'd like to thank the volunteers with Stay in TV, those who drive our older residents to many of their appointments, grocery shop for them, and perform small household maintenance projects, all for a minimal charge, allowing our oldest villagers to stay in their homes. I'd like to thank the Friends of the Public Library for the weekly lectures conducted at the Public Library of Tellico Village. The lectures are wide-ranging and provide all of us with numerous lifelong learning opportunities. I'd like to thank Timeless Tellico Foundation for ambitiously launching a fundraising campaign to provide 2 golf simulators in the new Tanasi clubhouse. They will surely enhance the golf experience for many villagers. Hats off to TTF. My check is in the mail, and I'm not even a golfer. I'd like to thank the Food Service Advisory Committee, the Tokwa Kitchen and serving staffs for the strip steak special at Valentine's Day. I heard it was great. I regret other commitments intervened and I could not partake. I'd like to thank the Tellico Village Pickleball Club Scheduling Committee for working with various constituencies, including the Parks and Recreation Department, to publish a new spring, summer, and fall schedule. The TVPBC needs to get 1,000 members on the courts. And remember the club's mantra: we play pickleball for the fun of the game. There are countless other volunteers and organizations I'd like to recognize and thank. I have only 3 minutes, and I need to thank our ultimate volunteers, our dedicated board. Thank you for everything you do for our community, including instituting this open forum policy to guide these public discussions, which are very valuable to the community. This is a wonderful place to live. You know, it's better at Tellico Village.
My name is Carol Plummer, and I live in Tokwa. Our house was constructed in 2019, and in January 2020, we settled into our new home in Tokwa. We were in our home for approximately 5 years when an unexpected gremlin raised its head, creating an extremely anxious and upsetting experience for us. This little device, known as a shark bite coupler, had been improperly installed in our front yard during construction. Shark bites are certainly not the most desired coupler to use underground, and if used at all, should be securely wrapped to prevent damage. Due to a drop in water pressure outside our home, we suspected that we had a water leak somewhere in our water line. Of course, our first step was to contact the Tellico Village Public Works. They confirmed we had a leak, but it was because the water meter and our home, they confirmed we had a leak, but it was between the water meter and our home, and since Tellico Village employees never installed lines past the water meter, this made the problem our responsibility. We contacted a leak detection company at once, and for a charge of $450, they were able to locate the leak. We then contacted a plumbing company, and for another charge of $686.50, we were able to have the leak repaired. The technicians told us that the problem had resulted from an improperly installed shark bite. Now, if you can imagine our shock when we opened our December water bill to find that we were being billed $10,310.91 for 477,060 gallons of water that we used during that billing period. Of course, we notified the POA of this charge, and they did lower our bill to $1,972.17. We have since discovered that Tellico Village did install our water line and continued to install them until January 1 of 2021. We have 3 questions for the board. 1, does the POA have any established formula for readjusting these exorbitant charges, and what is that formula based on? 2, how did such a leak go unnoticed by our water authorities? Surely there must be some safeguard in place to alert employees when such an excessive amount of water is being used at one residence. If no safeguard exists, then we would strongly suggest one be put in place. Surely with the tremendous wealth of knowledge we have within the village, someone could develop such a program. And 3, since Tellico Village did not stop installing water lines until January 1 of 2021, we are wondering how many other homes in the village may have the same gremlin just waiting to erupt, creating another incredibly stressful situation for a village family. We are asking the board to please investigate this issue in hopes of preventing the same type of event from occurring again. Knowing what we have been through over the past few weeks, we would certainly want to prevent this extremely stressful situation from occurring to other neighbors in the village. Thank you.
Judy, do you want to talk about the credit process?
Yes, as you said, you were given a credit, and the number that I have was that an $8,338.74 adjustment was made to your bill. And the total is you pay the minimum bill, and then all of the gallons beyond 2,000 are charged only at the wholesale rate, the exact rate that we pay to LUB for your water. So that's the adjustment that gets made to the water bill. And there will be an additional adjustment for those excess gallons that will also be appearing on your January bill.
Yes, we just got
So-
another bill for $2,400.
And there will be a similar adjustment for that, but since I have the gallons in here somewhere, 477,000 in December. And then I believe there was another 113,000 gallons in January. So that the adjustment will be made on that consumption in January, as you just said.
And as far as detection, I've got an answer for that, but I'll let Matt talk to that. Is how, your meter gets read once a month, so we don't have any way of knowing your consumption until the meter gets read. I don't know if you want to add anything to her other question there.
I don't have anything to add to that. The issue of us installing what I would call private side water lines, so anything that goes from the meter towards your house, what you said was news to me. I'm not disputing it, but until I can talk to some of the Public Works employees to verify that is news to me, so I'll have to investigate that.
Okay, I have a copy of an email that was sent to my builder from a gentleman, his name is Kevin, and his last name begins with the letter H.
Uh-huh.
And he's the one that told my builder that Tellico continued to do those lines until the January 1 date.
Okay.
And in the interest of time, I'm just going to interrupt since anybody.
You can't,
Well,
nope.
I'm just going to tell you that I took 7 pictures yesterday of 7 different meters. So to even waste any more time talking about a solution right now, there's so many meters that nobody knows what meter they're talking about anyway. So sorry I interrupted.
Okay,
What is,
you have to stand up.
I took a fall in my garage the other day, I'm sorry. Now I forgot my question. What about the chance of getting someone or some way to regulate that if there is a leak like this. I mean, to have 440,000 gallons of water pouring out, somebody has to be able to notice on some kind of a safeguard.
Again, how do we know that it happened until they read your meter?
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if maybe there is some kind of a computer program that can be put into the system so that if this type of thing happens, some kind of an alarm alerts. I think the electric company has something that will do that, but I'm not sure.
I don't know, but unless we were to replace everybody's meter with an electronic meter that could be read instantaneously or continuously, there's no way to do it with our current meters. Again, that's a project maybe down the road when we have many, many millions to invest in new electronic meters.
Well, I don't, it just seems like some kind of a computer program could be written somewhere to add on to your current system to help prevent this type of thing from happening. Because I tell you, this has been really a stressful time for us.
Usually, not always, the homeowner notices a wet spot somewhere, but
The Public Works fellows that came, and they were just really great. They walked around our yard. They even went in our crawl space looking for water, and there wasn't any.
that's a lot of water.
Yeah. So you have 440,000 gallons. Now, my neighbor did tell me that he saw some water one time going down the little drain-like thing, but, not 440,000 gallons.
Yeah.
That's a lot of water to disappear.
It is. Well, again, I'm sure that something could be done in the future. Our system just isn't that sophisticated right now. If we buy millions of gallons a day, it's not going to notice that it went up by a couple thousand gallons. Even if we tried to monitor it at a neighborhood level. But there's a point taken that, someday, we've already talked about potentially upgrading to electronic meters that don't require a meter reader to go around and look at every meter, like the electric company has done.
Mhm.
All that's read centrally. But we're not there yet, unfortunately. But we do offer these credits so that you're not strapped with a $10,000 water bill.
Yeah, I'm strapped with a $1,917 water bill. I mean, granted, that's a huge improvement. And at the time, we were just so thankful to get that because we thought it was our problem. But then we found out that it wasn't our problem, that Tellico Village actually did install that water line. So for us to have to pay, what was it, $1,972 for the month of December, even, that adjustment even seems off to me. I mean,
I think let's give Matt a chance to look into it a little bit more. I don't think we're going to solve it here, but let's give Matt a chance to look into it, especially your claim that the POA was responsible for putting the line to your place, and we'll just see where that takes us.
Yeah, I don't know who this Kevin, I don't know what his position is, but I just know it was Kevin H. because that's what
Okay.
came up on the... All right, gentlemen, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Hoffer. I think, Marty, that was a good solution to dive into that, investigate how a situation like this can happen. I'd also like to second Joe's comments leading off. They were spot on. There are wonderful things about Tellico Village, and all of us moved here for those reasons, and we enjoy that stuff. At the same time, always we're trying to improve. So I got some comments too around the water. I'm kind of interested to give a little color as some of the water readings, the billing procedures and processes that we have in place now? Do we know the air rate? What are the procedures in place for handoff to like the billing clerk? How many reading issues do we have on a regular basis? Are we logging these errors? Do we have a quality control person that's assigned to these functions? Do we inspect the pipes after they're installed by ourselves or the contractors? You know, the water loss that's coming in from, excuse me, Taos and Lub is quite high. It's my understanding that we have about 25% loss of our water, and the industry average is about 16%, so we're running quite a bit above that. At least that's what's we know from Taos and Love for what they're giving us and what they're billing. So I guess a couple questions. Excuse me. When's the last time we've done a water audit? Where it includes billing processes, it includes our pipes, it includes things like this device that this young lady displayed. So I guess I kind of like to direct this question really towards Mike Lackey, who specializes in water and sewer. You know, the water side is a very critical part of this whole equation. Now, we're dealing with water and sewer when it comes to tap. Can we do better? Do we have a plan on the water side, including maybe a water audit, including trying to figure out why we're losing so much water but being billed much more? Thank you.
Good timing. Real quick, in that space,
Thank you. I had that time perfect.
yeah, we're looking at putting meters on we want to verify their meters are what our meters. Currently, we don't even have meters on the inflow side.
Okay.
We've met with LUB, and we're meeting with them again tomorrow to kind of get our arms around all of this. A lot of the infrastructure that was put in years ago was designed to receive water from Taos. The original plan was for the village to get all of its water from Taos, and some decades ago, LUB came to us and played let's make a deal. And so we took the water from them at a they were actually losing money selling us water for over 2 decades.
Wow.
So they did a recent cost of services study, and your rates went up, sorry about that, but they were literally, we were being subsidized by the citizens of Loudon on our water rates. Now then, after the cost of services study, we got an increase. I can go into that a lot, but I don't want to consume everybody's time. Yes, we're working on it.
Okay.
No, I don't have your answers yet.
Okay, that's great. I mean, it's reassuring that you're working on it.
Yeah.
Any chance of turning off the tap fee for a while? You
I've
guys
got-
are more than welcome to take a motion to see if we got any support on the board for that. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mike.
I'll add some comments here. Starting back in 2021 and 2022, the FAC has spent considerable time on water overall. And credit goes to Brad Spiegel, who spearheaded a lot of that effort. So as part of the budget process each year and on a regular monthly basis, when we review the financials at the FAC, there is a focus on water. Now, it's at a more of a macro level than an individual residence level. But we have talked about clearly in many monthly meetings what the direction of our water usage and consumption is and our costs. And credit to Brad, he was the one who identified a couple of errors that came along in the process. In addition, there have been discussions with Judy's staff prior to Judy arriving about some of the reasonableness controls around the billing process. So the answer to your question is yes, it has received some review. Yes, there are some checks in place. Can they be improved upon? Yes, and that's a continual effort. The other key factor that has happened here over the last, I'll say, year and a half with Matt and his staff is there have been a lot of new water meters purchased and installed, which will give us better data going forward from the standpoint of much faster reading of those meters, better quality control around those readings. So there have been a number of improvements put in place, and we'll continue to focus on that.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mike. So you can see that there's a lot to be gained from a water audit, okay? So I did a little bit of math, and I see that we easily got maybe $500,000 or more just on the water side, and maybe the same one, we're sending them intrusion, and we're getting billed for that too. So if we can get to the root cause of some of these issues, we could see lower costs for Telco Village and passed on to the property owners. That's all I have. Thank you.
Well, one thing I'll add, back in '21, when I was on the FAC, we did a water audit at a high level. Took here's what we're getting billed from LUB, here's what we're billing all of our customers. And like you said, there's a pretty sizable difference. We were able to, at that time, it was Winston and Clayton, identify most of it to where our actual water loss was probably less than the 16% that you stated, which is kind of normal in a water system, because we have to use water to flush lines, flush that big tank when it doesn't circulate enough. You know, you can only leave water in there supposedly 3 days. You have to flush some of that water out, so we have known water losses. But then the other thing that was identified back then, which is why we've been doing this water meter project now for 3 years, is the older a water meter gets, the less accurate it gets. And some of the bench testing they did showed that the older water meters wouldn't register any water usage until it got above 2 gallons per minute flow rate. So, I mean, you're talking about flushing toilets. It doesn't even register if you flushed your toilet. So that's why you get a fair amount of loss in, inaccurate meters. So there's a lot of reasons. We identified a lot of different reasons, and we worked on addressing a lot that we could. So it's an ongoing process.
Sorry, my name's James Guy. I'm a new homeowner in Tokwa. Been here a month. I'm that unicorn everybody keeps talking about prospective new owners and everything. I might firstly say, amazing experience in the last 6 weeks. People helped me move in I'd never met before. Vicky at the golf club set me up in Chelsea, walked me through the full process. Amazing. Christina and Megan and Tokwa at the club. I walk in, with my name, pour me a beer. Probably speaks to my drinking habits more than them, but that's great too. And even getting up to the office, people have been amazing. Played golf with a guy called Terry, invited me to church, went to church with him the next day, ended up inviting me for lunch. That part of living here has been absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, dealing with the POA and the leadership has been a train wreck. I'm a technical director for a national facility management company, and I'll be honest with you, every meeting there's inaccuracies and misinformation from day one at the board meeting all the way through at the last town hall. We're still talking about stuff where, John, you said when you were opening acceptance that you were going to stop only open agenda items at the board meetings. That was not per our CCRs. Why even present that? The new open forum guidelines clearly say that our bylaws require people to be allowed to come and talk. This was my first interaction with the POA. I was in California trying to get away from those crazy government regulations and everything, and this is what I get from the POA, a contract to sign for my water. I can't move into the house without it. I got to sign it. But it tells me I identify you guys from almost everything. You don't even have to provide a reasonable minimum pressure of water. You write that off in this contract. I had no choice but to sign it. That's the first interaction you homeowners get with this POA board. It's absolutely incredible. This thing should be rewritten and reflect the people that live in this community and how they're welcoming, not this thing. A lawyer wrote this in behalf of a corporation, not in behalf of a group of property owners. The people make Telco Village, and I'll be honest with you, if I could get, people keep telling me online, if you don't like it, leave. You bought a house. The gentleman that was here at the board meeting did a dissertation on why we were taking money out of his pocket. I invested probably 40 grand that I'll never see in fees and financing and everything else. I'm upside down on a house that I plan to live in the rest of my life. But if it was based on this POA's leadership and some of the comments from some of the board, this gentleman here made a statement at the last board meeting that we can't start a project without having funds in the bank. I have managed $200 million projects, done a $5 million projects. I've yet to have a contractor ask me to see their books to prove we've got funds. You pay some money up front, you have a progressive payment option. So some of this misinformation needs to stop.
Well, I want to correct one piece of misinformation that you just stated. There is absolutely nothing in our governing documents that says that you have a right to speak at a board meeting.
We can talk, I'll bring it up.
Karen, you want to go to the appendix? The only section of the governing documents that speaks to board meetings, unfortunately, it's a long afternoon schedule here.
We can take it offline. I've read these things inside and out.
So, well,
I have a right to come and speak at a board meeting
No,
and bring
you
my
don't.
issues. I do. It's the only forum I have. Your full forum with town halls has no legal stand.
So here's well, if you go back, this is the page that deals with board meetings in our bylaws, right? And there's one section right there, number 6, I'll blow it up in the next one, that talks about board meetings. The only thing it stipulates is that board meetings must be open to property owners. There's absolutely no mention in here about allowing people to speak.
I will provide you a rebuttal, and I'll send it to you via email. I've sent you a couple of emails, I don't get a response, but I'll send you another couple. And I'll tell you what, the CC&Rs also talk about this as well. And it's the only forum I have to come and speak. And a town hall has no legal bearing. It's a great thing for you guys to get feedback and so forth, but there's no legal bearing. The only place I can come and bring my issues to this board is this meeting.
Which
And
is
you're
why
telling
we
me
allow
I'm not
it.
allowed to speak at this meeting?
No, but I'm just saying that
You're
we
saying
allow
the
it,
board- You're just saying these
and
say I
our
can't.
lawyer has confirmed, he
Well,
knows it better than anybody. He's been doing this 20 years for the POA.
He's probably one that wrote this stuff.
No, LUB wrote that.
No, they didn't. LUB didn't
It's identical.
identify.
But anyways,
Telco
we're not going
Village.
to, TAS, okay, that's almost word for word from the TAS document that every customer that has TAS signs.
That's not true. It's
Yeah.
not true. Why is it talking about Telco Village all the time then? Why did you put
John,
a list in
in
here?
fairness
Okay,
to the
well, that's
other
enough.
residents.
Your time is up.
No, you want to give me stuff. Let me reply. Why does it have that last paragraph in there saying that I have to follow all rules and regulations of the POA? What has that got to do with a water contract? Absolutely nothing. I signed a contract with the CCRs and bylaws when I joined this community. That is so unnecessary and so authoritarian and unneeded. This contract's a joke. It doesn't reflect well on the members of this community. And shame on whoever wrote it, and shame on for sending it. And I got my first water bill, just for the record, and you've got a big bold statement on the front of it. I'm going to cut off your water if you don't pay it on time. What is that about as well? Does that reflect the community? I've never had a utility company cut me off once for being 1 month's arrear on my utility bill. So did all the other companies do that as well, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Ron Hansen, I've been in Telco Village for 6 years now, best 6 years of my life. I'd like to preface my remarks by paraphrasing Shakespeare. He said, "A rose by any other name is a rose." I would submit to our board that the same thing is true of a tax. On July 17, 2024, The board voted to impose a monthly $80 charge to our water bills to last for 5 years. The vote was 6-1, with you, Mr. Orr, being the lone dissent. In that meeting, Mr. Reed asked you why you voted as you did, and you began to answer him but was interrupted, and then you proceeded to give Mr. Reed the courtesy of an answer to his question. And Mr. Orr, you specifically stated 5 reasons for your vote. Number 1, the $36 million was only a spitball figure. Number 2, the collection of funds would be well in advance of the final approval of any proposed projects. Number 3, the board was completely ignoring any reserve collections over the next 5 years, which would amount to $32 million. Number 4, a list of 9 alternative ways had been considered to enhance revenue, and none of them had yet been tried before the $80 fee was imposed. And finally, you noted that the percentage of total assets that water sewer comprised of Tellico Village's total assets, and you argued, Mr. Orr, that the current reserves should be dedicated in that same amount for infrastructure of water sewer. Your answer at that time was particularly relevant and logical, persuasive, cogent, lucid. I can't compliment it more. My question is this: is there any one of those 5 reasons that have changed, which make it today invalid? I don't think so. I watched that July 17 meeting, and I do not recall one single villager speaking in favor of the $80 charge, but many spoke against it, including future board members who are current board members, 2 of them sitting here today, and also former board members. In our last board election, a large majority, 70%, voted in favor of Mr. Reed and Mr. Lackey, and I think they can be accurately viewed as reform candidates for 6 positions. I ask you to pause the $80 fee. It seems to me, from what's happened in the last 6 months, that the Tennessee state legislature has a more accurate assessment of villager sentiment than does our own board. Pausing the fee would restore trust, and I don't know that there's any downside that could outweigh that benefit.
Thank you for your comments.
I'm sorry?
I said thanks for the comments.
Any more comments?
No.
Oh, thank you for my, I'm half deaf, Mr. Orr, I apologize.
Okay, Gary Zika. I'm a professional engineer in the state of Texas and Illinois. The reason I'm stating that is because the rules and regulations in the state of Tennessee, I'm required to state that I am not a professional engineer in the state of Tennessee when I speak. Just to confirm, the last town hall meeting, I recommended the board not proceed with the Kahiti or the main lift stations, and I gave various reasons in the 3 minutes I had. I'm not going to go into that again because it was in the town hall meeting. I understand Scott's going to still go through that a similar type presentation today, and I want to have some additional notes. And one of them, I attended a meeting with Jacobs and the POA back on December 6th. We asked a simple question of Jacobs at the time, and that was, if the POA reduces the I&I by 50% with the future demand, that's the build-out, will we still need a wastewater tank? Jacobs came back with that report and gave no recommendations. And if any of you guys have read the report, you'll see that. No recommendations. Again, Jacobs has taken our money, got no answer for it. During the town hall meeting, it was also stated that it would be more cost-effective to replace the main lift station than just to rehab the lift station as it is today. Well, if you believe Jacobs, and if you read all the reports, in October of 22, you know what Jacobs said? They said it was cheaper to rehab it. $3 million to rehab it, and $4.5 million to rebuild it, to have a new wastewater lift station. Normally, rehabbing is less expensive. It's more Takes a lot more planning and intense planning that the contractor and slash the engineers have to do. But normally, is using an analogy, when your car needs new tires, a timing belt, or brakes, you don't replace the car, you fix it, you rehab it. Again, in a town hall meeting, it was stated that the existing lift station does not meet current standards. It is still performing today. And again, if it's performing satisfactory, why do you need to replace it? It does need upgrades. We're looking at meters and variable speed controls that the TAP 2 has looked at. But again, if you're going to go to your house and you say that your house is out of date, because any house over 20 years old is not up to standards today. Are you going to replace your house, tear it down and replace it? No. Safely has been another issue that's been brought up. It's safer to just build a new one. Again, there's contractors throughout this country of ours. And there are safety procedures that they're supposed to follow and processes that those contractors work in these conditions of repairing lift stations. It's not rocket science. Both options for either a new lift station or existing in this station require a bypass or diversion pumping. When you got either you build it or you're replacing the pipes, you're going to have diversion pumping set up while you switch it over. So again, I've got more to go, but we're going to run out of time. But again, my recommendation is not to proceed with the Kahiti. At this time, you're receiving information from the meters that have installed, that Scott has installed. That's the first step, a partial step. And to gather that information and then go out with request for proposal to other engineers. And that's what we talked about all during the election process, of getting somebody else in here to look at it, not just keep feeding Jacobs Engineering with more money. Thank you.
Gentlemen, ladies, Mike Robbins, Mia Lackwell. I've been in and out of town in Las Vegas making some financial investments out there. It's going crazy. And they've got their water issues, so I'm kind of learning both sides here. Mr. McCrae has a great background. He's got a good history. He's got degrees. He's got knowledge. Just wanted to bring up a possible solution to maybe relieve some of the anger and hostility with all of this. If Mr. McCrae and all of you, with this whole pie going on with this water issue, can look at the data, not just the information, but the hard data, perhaps we could knock this $80 down to $40 a month. If we pause it, if you decide to do that and bring it back, everybody's going to get pissed off again. Knock it down to 40. Let's cross other bridges when we get to it. And of course, we need the data to back that up. John, by the way, I've lived here 2 years. You usually were pretty quiet. You're a good speaker. I didn't know that before. Matt, on the way over here, the guys are doing great today with the salt. I just drove over. Anyway, thank you.
David Taylor, Mia Lackwell. A lot of things you could talk about today, but I wanted to offer 3 suggestions about the water issues that I hope are positive and helpful. First of all, I'd like to suggest that the POA alert all the homeowners to the issue that that device, and I'm sorry I didn't pick up the name, a shark bite, might be in their line, whether the POA installed it or their builder did. I'm going to try to find out whether it was POA or Mashburn, and I want to know if it's in there, and I think it would, everybody being aware that they could have that problem would be a good thing. Second, it would be great if you, and Matt, I think you're probably the lead here, could find a way to check the accuracy of people's meters, especially the older digital ones. I think there, you get a 47,000 gallon reading and nobody can see the water. There's at least some possibility the problem is the meter, not water. I'm going to try to have somebody look at my meter. I want to be sure I don't get that kind of a bill. And then third, I'd like to second Chris's suggestion that we have an independent process audit of our water system and water billing. Process audits are something smart businesses all do periodically. It's the way you find ways to improve. I mean, you could pay somebody independent to do that, but I would guess that you could find a little subcommittee of experts in the village who would, gather and do a process audit of this stuff. We might find ways to bill more accurately or to find problems and find ways to address them, short of the larger water issues. And then, since I've got a few seconds left, I wasn't going to say this, but John, I think you are correct in saying that our founding documents don't say you have to listen to us in board meetings, but I would strongly suggest that the board adopt a policy, which it has the power to do, that it will always do that. It would be a very, very bad thing, in my opinion, if the board stops listening to residents.
John Olson, Tanasi. Directing my comments to the sewer issues and the dry weather flows that are being used for the Tanasi design and for the Kahidi design. The dry weather flow for Kahidi is stated to be 118 gallons per minute at build-up. This 118 gallons was confirmed in a TAP question, so that's a real number that we can use, and it goes according to the 100 gallons per person per day, which would be about 200 gallons per home. So if you use 118 gallons per minute for dry weather flow, and Kahidi build-out is 820 homes, the dry weather flow per hour would be about 0.15 gallons per minute. And that would equate to 207 gallons per day per home. Now, if you look at Tellico Village at 6,200 homes of build-out, and you mirror Kahidi to Tellico Village, the 0.15 gallons per minute per house would be 892 gallons per minute. Our design is now at 260. Kahidi is 3.5 times the dry weather flow that Tellico Village is. To give you an idea, the present 260 gallons per minute would be a person use of 40 gallons per day, not 100. When you had your meetings with Jacobs, what reasons were given for the large discrepancy between Kahidi design and Tellico Village design? Okay, I guess you'll get back to me.
We haven't met with Jacobs yet in that space. I only got the reports a week ago.
We got what?
I just got the reports a week ago, and I'm going through them now.
Oh, okay,
So I haven't had an opportunity to sit down with Jacobs, but that's definitely on the calendar.
okay. So you'll get back why the big discrepancy between Tellico Village and Kahidi. Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Toby Henry from Kahidi. I'm more referencing the contract with the POA in regards to water. And I'm just going to read this. It'll be real simple and way under 3 minutes. Contrary to conventional wisdom, Americans do not waive their constitutional rights when they move into a community association. In fact, courts have found that community association residents, by enacting reasonable rules for their own communities, are actually exercising their constitutional rights. Homeowner association and property owner association are legal entities, and both board members and homeowners are afforded legal rights which clearly outline, or which are clearly outlined in community governing documents. No land use or property rights and responsibilities agreements can be used to force owners or residents to contract away their constitutional rights. So this POA contract, where they're basically saying, you can't hold us responsible for pretty much anything, and you have to sign this contract like this man, it's against our constitutional rights. Thank you.
My name is Colleen Marley, and I live in Tokwa. And I had prepared a whole lot of things to say and questions to ask based upon very good information with the assistance of Claude, Chat GPT, Gemini. I have like great assistants now that can make me sound really smart. But the end of the day is that I am really smart. And I've known that since I was super young. I had tests to prove it, and my brain goes so fast that I can't even explain it to you. But the point being is that IQ is a number. And I never talk about that because it's quite embarrassing, because I've been bankrupt before in my life. And based upon a simple number, I should be an Elon Musk, but that will never happen. And I say that to illustrate the point of the duplicity and the duality of life, and things are that always not what they appear. Taylor Sheridan could write a script about our neighborhood, and it would mimic the world of politics and what has happened in the last 5 years. I kid you not. I mean, that's how many issues there are, and that's how thick the mud is. And at the end of the day, all of my numbers and stuff, I know they make sense, and I know what's coming because I know what's been going on. And unfortunately, because I have so much family here and I have kids that work for POA, I was a coach, I do CASA, I do elementary school substitute teachers. I have my ear. I go in people's houses, in so many people's lives and houses and bathrooms, that I have so much information. I can't do anything with it because I can't reveal sources. And so it gets incredibly frustrating. And but what I do know is that you have got to stop. You just have to stop and pause, because the problems here go back so far that, and it's accumulated so much that now I know for a fact, because I know a handful of people, that we have some of the people that are supposed to be on the board where they should be. We're going to get some more. I'm not going to speak to the previous members. Don't care. Doesn't matter. I know what we need to do moving forward. And if you keep moving full steam ahead, John, I mean, you were the only one that voted against it. You said at the meeting last week that we can't go backwards and give this forum to old residents from whatever, when 3 hours before you knowingly shut the water off of a resident of a 14-year-old account. And I can't even look at you right now to say that, because I know that you would never intentionally lie, because that's not who you are. But in that moment, that is exactly what you did. And not only did you lie, what my ears heard as a radical advocate is that I have now targeted the Gormans for who knows what reason, just because they bought a new house. They have been targeted and discriminated against because of what reason? None of those things are true. I know that. I know you. You would never do that. But that's the optics, okay? And I'm not going to stop. The thing that we're arguing about, all the meters here, and this meter and that meter, okay, we have a huge problem when all the meters were changed and that whole debacle went through, but everybody's too busy trying to cover it up. I'm telling you right now, I got pictures of 7 different meters. So until you know whose meter's what, who knows? I mean, and then we put Matt up there, which, Matt, I think you might be wonderful for the interim. I hope so. I mean, I'm always about, I see the cup half full all the time. I don't care what people say about me. I'm an optimist, and I love living here. My family lives here. You won't run me out. So, good luck with that. I just want to do what's right, and I want to see what's done what's right, because there is literally criminal activity that has happened here that nobody's calling out on. And we had a kid die in front of Tanasi in a car accident because they were drinking illegally, underage, in one of our restaurants. All should have lost their liquor license the very next day. I've lived in Virginia. I lived in D.C. I went to American U. Let me tell you something. This shit wouldn't fly. And I'm sorry, I'm going to stop. Breathe.
Well, I'm going to stop you right
Okay,
there.
thank you.
Your time is up. And actually, we're way over our 30 minutes, so we got to stop. We've got a very full agenda today. There's no way we're going to get done by our cutoff date. So we're going to move on. I appreciate everybody's input. And go on to something maybe slightly less controversial, like golf.
Hey, John, I just want to make one comment. David, you made a comment about allowing people to speak, and I know James did as well. And this board will never shut that off. All that we're trying to do now is to try to gain control of the board meetings so they don't take all afternoon. And the thought was to provide that opportunity in the town halls. So if that doesn't work, we'll modify, we'll go with what works, but don't ever think the board is trying to cut off resident input. We're not doing that. Never will.
I was just responding to somebody said that we had a legal obligation to do it.
If you're not going to continue the debate, that's unfair.
Right.
So if you're going to continue the debate, that's unfair. He's not going to want to brought up, and I'm open for you to rebuttal. And you can smile all you want.
Hey.
The CC&Rs tell me that I have to bring my issues to the board meeting, and that's what I bring them to, and I'll prove you wrong. Because you've been wrong a lot, John, in the last 2 months I've been here.
We're trying to do what's best for everybody. We're trying to listen to your comments, and we're trying to address everybody's comments. We're doing the best we can, and sometimes we may not come across like you think we should, but we're one of you. I mean, we're residents too. We're volunteers. We're trying to help make this community a better place for all of us. And please give us that respect just like you want it. I mean, that's the bottom line. We're all in this together.
Also in the water contract, we're revisiting, we're looking at that. So we want to make sure that it's okay. So, I mean, was brought up, but we immediately had some questions ourselves, and we're re-looking at that, so, okay?
Casey?
There we go.
You got 3 minutes.
Perfect. That's all I need. Yes. Perfect. All right. We're here to talk golf and get us back on schedule. Do we need to go over? Am I going the wrong way? There we go. So I put this picture up as the first one because that was kind of the view in January. When I made this report last week, we were sunny and in the 60s, and I was hoping that's where we'd stay, but today is proven differently. But yeah, the year started off kind of tough. We had 9 days of closure in January due to snow and ice, another 7 days where we had extremely low rounds from really cold temperatures, some rain, 5 cart path only days, and the weather is a big factor in our rounds and what we can get done on the golf course. I think we missed our rounds in January by about 2,000, only slightly less than last year, but we made it up throughout the year last year, so we're planning on something different. But to move on, we start every year in January with our annual Tennessee Turfgrass Association Conference. This is where the superintendents and assistant superintendents from all 3 golf courses attend the state conference to continue our education. We get CEUs that go towards our pesticide applicators licenses, which by law we're required to have at each course. And then just some highlights from the show included discussions, new pest management techniques led by professors from University of Tennessee and NC State, discussing anything from new diseases, new fungicides, weed control, things along that line that would help us in our operation. A really interesting topic was led by Dan Mearsman, the Director of Agronomy at Philadelphia Cricket Club, a really high-end club in the Philadelphia area, on autonomous mower technology. This was really an insightful talk. They actually employ 27 autonomous mowers at Philadelphia Cricket Club. They mow all their clubhouse grounds, their practice areas. They use them a lot around the clubhouse, which I think could be an application in Tellico Village. We know our restaurants are busy, so they use them there to get the mowing done at night. That way when people show up the next day for breakfast or brunch or lunch, the mowing's done, and the guys around their clubhouses can focus on detail work rather than running loud mowers when folks are trying to eat. So that was a really neat conversation. Workforce challenges and hiring strategies. It's no different in golf than it is in any other industry right now. It's tough to find help, especially seasonal help in our case. It's really hard to find young kids that are willing to get up early and come to work and, tell them you got to work. You got to be here at 6, and not only that, but you got to work weekends and holidays throughout the summer. So it's a challenge, but we do think there's ways to work on that. We're going to try to build a relationship with the local high schools, their golf teams. We've gotten some really good employees from Loudon and Sequoia High School golfers that enjoy to play. The ones that don't mind working really do a great job and are perfect fits for our team. Some tournament preparation from leaders in the industry from across the state, from the guys at TPC Southwind, Holston Hills, the Honors Course, kind of their experiences hosting major tournaments. And then a discussion led by some professors from UT on turfgrass breeding, discussing latest varieties of turfgrass, which at Tanasi, we all know we're going to be building a new putting green, so we're going to be looking at the newest, best variety of bentgrass that we can put out there that should cut down on some water consumption, disease reduction, and heat stress. So we're excited about that. Just a quick recap of 2024. 2024 is a tough year. We got about our average rainfall, but we had 42 days above 90, 22 nights above 70. So it was a very tough year for our bentgrass putting greens, but our guys at each course did such a great job. I think we had another just phenomenal year on our greens, which goes back to all the practices and procedures that we put in place through the year. But if you all do remember, it was a tough winter. Kahidi last year, when we got when we got snow in the village, Kahidi got quite a bit of ice, which resulted in pretty extensive winter kill or winter injury. I won't call it winter kill because a lot of it came back. In April of last year, some folks were thinking we would have to shut the golf course down and resod and spend an exorbitant amount of money to get the fairways back to where we needed them. But hats off to Jordan Clark, the superintendent, and Josh Gunner, the assistant superintendent at Kahidi. They developed a plan, got some direction from Dr. Brosnan, Dr. Horvath from UT, and the golfers in Tellico Village. That we had areas marked off and areas for folks to stay away from, and then Jordan and Josh, with their plan to increase fertilizer and some cultural practices, they only sodded about less than 3/4 of an acre on the golf course. So it came back. That picture on the right kind of shows Kahidi's 18th fairway in the fall, and it was great. So hats off to those guys. So you may wonder, what do we do in the wintertime? There's always something to do. We're not necessarily out mowing grass, but on nice days we are still preparing the golf course from bunkers, greens, changing cups, hole locations, getting the golf course ready. But when the weather is not conducive to be on the golf course, we have plenty to do indoors. So Jordan's team, like Tanasi and Kahidi, you'll see is a common theme, but we all go through and refurbish, refinish, rebuild wood accessories on the golf course, from bag stands to we're making some hole signs, tee markers, things like that. Jordan's team was actually able to work with Simon. The rec department funded a new fence. Jordan's team installed it at the tennis courts at Kahidi. And then they're also doing some roof work on the bathrooms in-house, and they built an extension on their pole barn, which kind of gets the rest of their equipment undercover at Kahidi. So those guys have been very productive over the winter. Tanasi's the same way. We stayed busy through January with some tree work, brush clearing. It's kind of a yearly thing to go through and clean the lake banks off. Thanks goes out to the Tellico Village woodworkers. You'll see some new tee markers at Tanasi this year. I think we got over 180 new tee markers, custom made with the Tanasi feather. And it only cost Tellico Village about $120. So thank you to the woodworkers for that. But then it is a process to get them sanded and painted and stained and everything to kind of protect them from the weather. And we also started on a big drainage project last week on number 4 at Tanasi. So that's been on the list for a while. But thanks to Public Works for allowing us to use a piece of equipment we would have had to rent. So the relationship between golf and Public Works since Matt has gotten here has been better than I've had in the 14 years in Tellico. Those guys will do anything to help us out or let's borrow equipment as long as we're trained and properly care for the equipment. So thanks to Matt and those guys for that. And again, Tokwa stays busy as well. A lot of indoor projects, refurbishing and rebuilding wood accessories. With the new curtains at the pavilion, they had to go through and kind of think of a new way to hang the golf simulators in there. throughout the month of January, we also try to get our largest agronomic application done, which is our kind of course-wide pre-post-emergent application. That's it'll take care of any winter weeds that have emerged, and it's a pre-emerge for any summer annuals that may come up early in the spring. It's also the time of year where we do preventative maintenance on all of our equipment, detailing, sharpening, changing the oil, fluids, everything like that. So it kind of gives us time to go through everything, because November, December is a lot of leaf cleanup, so January, first part of February is taking care of stuff indoors and with equipment, and then before you know it, it's aerification season. So that's kind of our next big project. It's only 2 weeks away for Tokwa, starting March 3rd. They're going to do just our traditional hollow tine aerification. It's a half-inch tine on 2-inch spacing. We go to two directions. Tanasi's doing the big drill and fill that we're doing every 3 years at each course. Each course gets it every 3rd year. And then Kahidi will be the week of the 17th through the 20th. It's very aggressive in the spring. It does take some time to heal, but it also allows us to go really conservative in the fall when the weather's great and our golfers are really kind of beating down the door to get in there. So we're closed 4 days at each course in the spring, and then just 1 day at each course in the fall. Whereas if we did a traditional hollow tine in the fall as well, we would have to probably close for 2 or 3 days at each course. So there's some revenue made up by that. Then golf maintenance capital, we'll see some of these today. You know, we go through all of our equipment every year, and we kind of have a replacement plan based off of hours and when we think we'll need things, but just because it's on the schedule to get replaced doesn't mean we're always replacing it. We really deep dive and say, you know, can we get another year out of this? Can we, you know, push this off another year? So I know we did extend some things the last 2 years that we're asking for this year, and some things that were on the schedule this year that we're pushing down the road. So I won't necessarily go through all of this, because I know we're going to talk about some of it later today. But used equipment, you know, we've really been the last 2 years trying to thin our fleet out for quite a bit of time prior to probably 2022, 23. Things were starting to build up. We know we have some stuff we needed to get rid of, so we're in the process of selling around $8,000 of used equipment already. We've got probably another 15 or 20 in used equipment coming. So, you know, we look at everything we have. If we feel like we don't need it, we sell it. If we feel like we do need it, we keep it. And just shout out to the guys at Tokwa and Kahidi and Tanasi as well. Our equipment technicians are top of the line. They do phenomenal work, and you'll see some of the replacements that we're asking for today is equipment that's 15 to 20 to even, you know, I think we're replacing a trailer from 1982. So we really try to run things as long as we possibly can before we do ask for a replacement. So with that, I know that was quick, but I do want to thank all the golf maintenance staff for their hard work and dedication, the board of directors and our Tellico Village residents for their support, which allow us to keep improving. I've been in Tellico for 14 years, and every year I feel like the golf courses get better, and that's our goal every year, is just to keep pushing, keep making improvements, and provide the best quality golf experience we can for our residents and their guests. So I'd be willing to...
Matt?
Yes, sir.
Wells?
Yep.
Wells, can I ask you a couple questions?
Absolutely.
So I really like what you said about the summer help. It's got to be very difficult, right?
It's tough, yes, sir.
Yeah, weekends and holidays and
Yeah.
6 a.m.
Yeah.
So how many golf course high school teams play at our courses?
Sequoia, Loudon, and
Greenback?
Greenback, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And is there anything reciprocating with them? I mean, I don't know how are they compensating us for that? Do we reciprocate with them?
They volunteer their time to come to many of our member events, and they'll actually, like our men's member guest, which we call our Red Tail Hawk Invitational, they'll come, and the high school kids will actually go to our members' cars, bring their bags so they don't have to carry them, make that relationship with them, and then all we give them is some matches and a little bit of practice time. So they actually really don't take much from our golf course. And for us as a community, we're going through the Kahidi Starter Shack right now, looking at where's private funding for a Kahidi Starter Shack, and that's going through Sequoia High School, so they're building that. So we get relationships with the coaches who know the teachers, and it's a good hand-in-hand relationship there.
And practice rounds too, right? They come out and practice?
Correct.
A lot, okay.
No. They pay if they're practicing.
They do pay.
We only give them about 3 or 4 home matches a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. But I like the untapped potential maybe in the relationship
Yeah,
building with them saying,
we had a nice
hey,
pipeline for a few years of Loudon High School golfers that worked for us at Tanasi, and
Right.
their friends would come the next year, but
Right.
those guys have all kind of moved on, so we've kind of got to tap into a new group and see if we can't get that relationship
yeah,
going again.
I don't want to give away revenue on the practice rounds, but, maybe there's something to be said for them working
Right,
for
right.
some of their tee time.
Yeah, and
for
we've had
practice
some of
rounds.
their guys show up and help us during aerification when they're available, so it's, like I said, we try to build a relationship with them if we can, because
Good, keep
they're
it up.
good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Hey now, John.
Tracy?
Sorry. All right, I'm not going to say the words water or sewer in my presentation, but I am going to talk about snow and rain for 2 seconds. 2024 in review quickly was another great year. We did about 2,600 rounds less than we did in 2023, which was our best year to record. But just a true testament, while I have this stage, I really want to thank the Tellico Village golf staff. Not only the operations team, but the agronomy team, the professionalism, the courtesy. I think it's a truly unique thing for our village and our culture to have so many employees that live in the community because they care about the community. And that's really just a testament to them. And these numbers are a lot of crazy ideas thrown out by myself, the Golf Advisory Committee, golf professionals on ways to increase revenue, rounds, maximize yield, and another great year. And you saw my write-up to end the year, read that. And as we've gotten into the new year, Wells kind of touched on this. We lost for the closed days. Tokel was closed for 13 days. Tanasi and Kahiti were closed for 9. So a total loss of about 1,300 rounds. And the outlier days where we were open, they were cold and wet. Weather continues to be the #1 impact to golf rounds. So we'll closely monitor that. February has been good until, obviously, look outside today. It's not so great. But I'll get into our unlimited golf. I'll update this quickly before I get to my meat of my presentation. Individuals, there's been 122 individual golf packages sold. 157 is our budgeted number. Family packages are up, so I'll sit here and don't quote me on this, but I'll sit here and tell you, won't shock me if families up and individuals down just by looking at that number. 80, those are budgeted year over year, so more families, maybe that secondary person has decided they're playing golf. To me, that's a testament to our Get Golf Ready and our beginner and intermediate golf clinics that we run in order to keep people playing and in our facilities. And then our Twilight package, that's a great number. This was 2 weeks ago when this was updated. So that Twilight number, right at the 100 number is great. We're not even into Twilight package season. So I'm ambitious about our unlimited golf programs reaching where they were last year. And I'll tell you about the future of golf in Tellico Village. I'm sorry about the typo there about the slope rating. The Golf Advisory Committee, Steve, I see you there. Thank you for your help as well. We've been hard at work for this is a 2-year project, and this is something that we're probably going to be the largest community in the Southeast that's adopted this. It's going to be unbelievable for Tellico Village Golf. You've got new course ratings, new slope ratings. Those were done by Gary Donay. He was a 31-year career golf course rater. So he's come up with our slope ratings, our course ratings to actually match the changes. We have, I won't call it water because I promised I wouldn't say that. So we have, let's call it lakes, right? We have bodies of water that they basically have changed the way golf is played. Everything is moving to penalty areas, not so much out of bounds. So the way golf courses are rated have changed. Obviously, our trees have matured, and we have a lot of native area in our golf courses. It's part of our Audubon programming. So the golf courses were due for a re-rating. We did that. So within that, we tackled a huge project. There's new Tellico Combo Tee courses, and there is a new Tellico Village scorecard that we will be rolling out in March. So this is an example. I know it's a lot on one screen. We have, as a Golf Advisory Committee, a communications plan to roll this out to the golf community and make sure that they understand what's going on. But in short, the men's black, blue, blue-white combo course and white tees will have their own hole-by-hole rating. Currently, all men's handicap holes have a hole handicap. Number 10 at Tanasi is a great example. Men, we have over 5,000 rounds of data that we took this from. So we didn't have conversations, what hole do you think's hard, what hole do you think's hard. We took actual data. and made changes. Number 12 at Kahidi is an example. It's been ranked the 9th hardest hole on the golf course. I've been here for 10 years, and that's the hardest hole in Tellico Village, right? In my mind, okay? We're playing the black and blue tees normally, but it is actually ranked the 4th hardest hole at Kahidi, and our scorecard's going to show that, right? Number 10 at Tanasi, I looked into a lot of MGA data. We go hole by hole and enter those scorecards. Number 10 at Tanasi from the white tees is the 2nd hardest hole on the golf course. Well, from the orange tees, which is 80 to 90 yards in front of that, it's the 10th hardest hole. It's eight holes easier. I'm not saying that it's an easier hole. There were just 8 holes that were harder than that hole. So now you'll have men being able to compete from different tees using different handicaps for those holes. We've done the same thing with the ladies' tees. The orange and the green tees will have their own handicap, and the green-yellow combo course and the yellow tees will have their own handicaps in order to allow our ladies to have more fair competitions as well. We had over 5,000 rounds of data from their tees, and we took the LGA 18, the LGA 9 data, club championship data, entered all that, spit it out. Number 2 at Tanasi is glaring at me right now. From the green tees, it's the 5th hardest hole on the golf course. From the yellow tees, it's the 17th hardest hole on the golf course. In other words, it's the 2nd easiest hole, right? So now you're going to have fair competitions. To explain the combo courses, as I wrap up, basically the black, blue, white, orange, green, and yellow tees have barely moved. We changed some of those based on what made sense. We wanted to separate from having too many tee boxes on that hole in order to save some foot traffic. But if you were playing the orange and white combo course, essentially you can see on this, if you go back through the slides, you'll be able to see it better. I know it's small up there, but the scorecard's clearly going to note which tee you should play in order to be playing that course. So we're really excited to roll this out. About every 250 yards, our players are going to have an option. Men and women are going to have 9 different golf courses within our 6 sets of tees to play from. So it's really an industry standard that's changing. We're out on the forefront of it because I think a lot of golf courses are going to adapt this. We wanted to be one of the first, just like we were when we did the yellow tees 12, 13 years ago for our forward tee players. So it's in my slide. If anybody wants to go through it, I've got Tanasi, Tokwa, and Kahidi. And finally, next month we'll ramp back up. Myself, Wells, and Pat White will go into our golf talk where we talk about hot topics, not only what we're hearing on the golf in the golf world, but maybe what's on Nextdoor. Contrary to belief, not everything put out there is true on Nextdoor, so we try to tackle some of that, as well as where we're going. Obviously, the new scorecards and the course ratings will be our hot topic, but we try to do everything correctly for the golfers and the non-golfers, and we talk about that as well in Golf Talk. So if you have any recommendations for Golf Talk, my email's on the POA website. We'd love to have it, and I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, I'll field them. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome about the 9 tee boxes. So you got some catchy names, because I think the one was a challenge tee boxes.
It was. We didn't come up with catchy names, but it was called the challenge tee, but nobody played it. It was the black and blue tee challenge. So we're going to our clientele of tee boxes they'll actually play. And while you mentioned that, we didn't do an orange green tee because at Tanasi and Tokwa, you're kind of landlocked you'd have to actually add more tee boxes. Actual playing surface. So a lot of those tees, actually, the orange and the green tee players are already playing from the same actual markers, so we didn't come up with that combo course.
On the re-rating, did we come up more difficult or simpler?
It is. So actually, the back tees, a lot of times were shown as harder. Kahidi's a hard golf course. It got harder, right? Overall, most every golf course got harder. So our players' handicaps actually are going to drop a little bit because your score's not going to change, but the rating is harder. So your index is a little better. So everybody just got a shot better, right? That's great. So we started the new year off with a win. So thank your golf instructor, right?
Good job.
Good?
Yep. Thank you. Next, we have long range.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. So I'm Phil Brenner. I'm the 2025 Chair of the Long Range Planning Advisory Committee, so thanks for having me this afternoon. Here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to give you a brief update on our 2024 goals and kind of where we're at on those. We're going to talk about potential 2025 goals and hopefully come to a consensus there. I'm going to give you a one-slide update on our housing forecast, and we will spend the bulk of our time this afternoon fulfilling one of our 2024 goals, and that is to provide you a readout on our parks and recreation utilization and capacity studies. All right, so just as a recap refresher here, our 2024 goals were two big bullets here: continue the strategic long-range facilities plan and utilization forecast. And within that, previously we had delivered restaurants and meeting space. In 2024, we said we would try and work on parks and recreation, which you'll see later today. We would begin work on parking and marinas. And we have more work to do there, so you're going to see those appear on our proposed 2025 goals. The other big bullet there was to produce a comprehensive benchmark versus other communities. That's one of the elements of our charter. And we started down the path of that last year and started gathering data, got a fair amount of data gathered up. The board asked us to pivot a little bit and focus on rate benchmarks, so we pivoted and spent a fair amount of time last year focusing on just rate analyses versus other communities, and delivered that to you last August. So we want to circle back and fulfill the rest of that benchmarking activity by wrapping up our analysis of amenities and other elements of the village. Real quick here, I'm going to just step through real quick. I'm not going to spend time talking about parks and recreation because we're going to talk about it here in a few minutes. On parking, so Bruce Polensky, who's with us here today, is leading that effort. The way the committee operates is when we have these goals, they're very time consuming. We break the committee into subcommittees, 3 to 4 people that go concentrate and work on a goal, bring back what they're doing to the full committee, and that's the approach. So Bruce is leading that. You can see the other members. Chris Alsop was the lead last year, and he's rolled off the committee this year. So last year we did some research. We identified the parking lots we thought we were at issue. We spent some time researching ways to gather data, ended up recommending to the staff that we invest in some pneumatic measuring equipment, and the staff did that for us and bought us the equipment. And so now, as of January, we've rolled into the data collection phase. So you may have seen in January, if you rolled into the parking lot at the Wellness Center, you may have seen the rubber pneumatic tubes across the entrance to the parking lot there. We had counters installed there, counting cars going in, cars going out, taking snapshots of beginning and ending car counts. We will continue that activity throughout the rest of the year as we move to different parking lots. Obviously, some of our parking lots have seasonal kinds of use. January is a big month for the Wellness Center. That's why we wanted to be there in January. Everybody wants to lose those holiday pounds, so we're starting to gather that data there. Marinas. So Virginia Kendrick on the committee is going to lead that this year. We started, and we didn't get very far last year because we had a pretty full plate, but we started the process of gathering some historical data on our docks and our waiting lists. We also gathered some data on homeowner docks, and then we didn't get much further. This year we're going to propose that we circle back and do that. I think we've got a fair amount of data now that we can begin to really look at that analysis and deliver that to you later this year. And then finally on benchmarking, as I mentioned, we've identified the communities that we want to benchmark. We've identified a list of attributes we want to benchmark. We collected a whole bunch of data last year. The data collection is done. We delivered the rate benchmark analysis back last year, and we're starting now to work on a report to you on the rest of it, which is primarily focusing on amenities and the things that the village offers and how we stack up against other communities. So with that, I'll turn to 2025 goals, unless anybody had any questions on the 2024 goals. So potential 2025 goals, and this we work at the behest of the board. And so every year we come before you and suggest some goals, and sometimes you suggest some goals for us. And so here's what we've put together. We want to continue the long-range facilities and capacity and utilization studies. You're going to see Parks and Rec today. We want to produce the marinas and the parking studies as we've started on last year. And then we want to wrap up the comprehensive benchmarking, focusing on amenities and things like that. Then the last bullet here, Joel is our liaison to the committee, and we've had some discussions about developing a prototype for a balanced scorecard for the village. And by way of historical context, some of you know this, back in 2019 when the committee proposed and the board adopted a new strategic long-range plan, one of the near-term recommendations in that plan was that we should have a balanced scorecard for the village. And in 2021, the board agreed for that to be a goal for the committee, and we did some work on that, presented some preliminary concepts, and I will tell you, I don't think it was our best work. The concepts that we presented were financially focused, and a good scorecard is more than finances, and the board declined to pursue that any further at that time. So we're going to circle back with Joel. We have a kickoff meeting on Friday. We're going to take an approach at this that's more balanced, if I can use the pun there. It's not going to be just financial metrics, but some other leading indicators that will help give us a snapshot of the health of the village. So we'll be working on that, and I think the timeline is to deliver a prototype back to the board by the middle of the year and have something that we can implement for 2026. So I'll pause here and see if there's any feedback from the board. I would just like to get some agreement that you're good with these goals, and with your endorsement, that's what we will work on this year.
I'm going to make a motion to accept those goals for long-range planning for 2025.
I'll second.
Any other comments by the board?
No, great job, Phil, and thank you for the explanation of all of it. Really excited about the balanced scorecard. Thank you. You did a great job.
All right, good. With that, we will make those our goals, and we'll get to work on them.
I guess we can vote. All those in favor?
I went for the assumptive close there, so. All right, so housing, I've got one slide here, and we try and update this. We've developed and refined a model that we use based on housing permits that have been pulled. You saw an update back in August, and I'll refresh you as to what I told you back in August. Back in August, we had this bar chart here, and we showed that our model forecasted in the mid-range of the model 200 housing starts for 2024. At the time in August, I told you we probably are not going to make that. The POA budget was 158 homes. Our midpoint of the model said 200 homes. I said I think we'll be in between those two numbers, and that's exactly where we landed. We ended the year with 177 starts, which is almost midway between what the POA budgeted and where our forecast was pointing us. For 2025, this model didn't change much. We updated the numbers, but it barely moved. So the gray band that you can see is sort of the margin of error. The blue bars tell you where the midpoint is at. And so the midpoint for 2025, our model would say, would predict 143 housing starts, permits for next year. The POA budget is 175. And our range, the margin of error of the model says is somewhere between 107 and 180. So I would just note that the budget at 175 starts is very near the very top of the range of that model. The top of the range of that model is 180. You've budgeted 175. I think you need to be cognizant of the fact that that may be hard to achieve. You may not get there. We may be closer to the midpoint back in the 140s, 150s range. You will just have to monitor it through the year. So any questions there? That's just sort of a heads up where I think looks like things are moving. All right, with that, we're going to spend the bulk of our time talking about a parks and recreation utilization study there. So I want to start off by thanking the people that worked on this study. So Jim Alexander, who was on the Long Range Planning Advisory Committee last year and is now on the PSAC committee, led the subcommittee that worked on this. I invited Jim to make this presentation. He's sunning himself in Florida, so you've got me. But I also want to thank the other members of the subcommittee that worked on it, Bruce Polanski and Chris Alsop. And I want to thank the Parks and Recreation Department too. They have, back in 2019, they had a strategic plan document. They created what they call an expand in place strategy for their facilities. They've been working that. So I'd like to extend some kudos to Simon and Larissa and Trey for that. And also the help of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Holly is here today. We shared this data with them early on, and you'll kind of see where we think this is leading. And appreciate everybody's work on this. With that, what were we trying to do? So we started this 2 or 3 years ago, I think, and I think it was maybe a suggestion that Marty, who was our liaison at the time, said maybe we need to look at our facilities and say, are they going to carry us to build out or not? And so we've been working our way through that. So in the Parks and Recreation space, what we did was we looked at the major activities and we looked at the locations where those activities take place. So on the left-hand side there, you see the activities that we looked at: exercise rooms, pickleball, tennis, pools, fitness class. And on the right, you see the locations where those activities take place. If you look at the right, there are 13 locations you can look at. You can look at the wellness center and say, what about exercise rooms there? What about pickleball there? What about tennis there? What about the pools there? What about fitness classes there? So the wellness center's got 5 activities that are going on there. So we did an analysis for each location and the activities there. That ended up being 13 different analyses that we did, taking a look at our facilities. I'll give you the headline here, and then we'll kind of dive into a sample of the data and some conclusions from it. At a high level, we would say that the parks and recreation facilities, we believe, have sufficient capacity through build-out. That's not to say that we won't have pain points in the future. There will continue to be times throughout the year where activities will exceed optimal capacity. And optimal capacity is a concept that is defined in the Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan. They looked at their facilities and said, what's the optimal number of people that can be utilizing this facility, occupying this space at any given time? And that's kind of what we use as our benchmark to say, what's our utilization compared to the optimal capacity? I would note, though, that there are external factors that come into play here. It's not just the bricks and mortar that we have to think about, but there are factors such as the parking lot. Can the parking lot, even if the building can hold the number of people that want to go do some particular facility activity, can the parking lot accommodate it? Do we have sufficient operating hours? Are there instructors that are available to teach the classes that we need? So there are factors outside brick and mortar that can impact our utilization and our abilities to use those facilities. I won't spend time on this. This is out of the Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan, but it gives you kind of the numbers of what that plan says are the optimal capacities. So in the Wellness Center, the fitness class, optimal capacity is 40. Does that mean you can't get 50 people in that room? Yeah, you probably can. If you want to get up close and personal, maybe you can get 60 people in there. But, that's probably not optimal. Let's talk about our methodology. So what we did is we used the data, the attendance data that Parks and Rec captures. So we had 10 months of data from 2024 or 2023. We had some data from 2024, particularly for the Kahidi pickleball and tennis courts. There was some reconfiguration down there. We looked at what were the busiest times and the busiest hours or days of the week. And then we evaluated the utilization for each of those activities, comparing that utilization to those optimal capacities that were defined in the strategic plan. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like here in a second. We calculated the average utilization based on that. And then to forecast into the future, we applied a growth multiplier to that. And so for the main village, we had a growth multiplier of about 20%. And then for Kahiti, about 40%. That was based on how many of the platted lots in those communities have permits pulled on them, and it billed out what additional number of homes would be in those communities. So this is kind of what the yield is from all of this, and we're going to take a dive here into this in a second here. On the left-hand side is kind of the process we went through. We identified the highest attendance days. We looked at the exercise rooms, the courts, the pools, the fitness classes. We calculated the average utilization, and we applied the build-out ratio. What that did was it produced the table on the right here, and I know you can't see it. We're going to look at it here in a second. But what that table is day of the week, hours of the day, what was the percentage utilization of that facility. And so let's step forward here to the next slide here, and you'll see this one is an example. There are now 26 of these charts, and I'll tell you why here in a second. So this is Wellness Center pickleball utilization. And so across the top, you see it's April the 16th, April the 17th, right on through May. Those dates were picked because those were the highest utilization days from the data set that we had. And then down the left-hand axis, you have time of day, 6 a.m., 8 a.m., 10 a.m., right on through 6 p.m. And then in the cells, what you have is a calculated utilization. So based on the number of people that were utilizing that facility that day, that time, compared to the optimal capacity, what was the percentage of utilization? And the red cells then are the cells where we were in excess of 100% of optimal capacity. Now you might ask, well, how can you be in excess of 100% on a pickleball court? Good question. So the optimal capacity on a pickleball court is 4 people. You put 4 people on the court's full, right? Except that sometimes you have people rotating in and out. You might have 6 or 8 people that are utilizing that court. There's only 4 people on the court at the moment, but you got 2 people or 4 people that are rotating in and out for that time period. So those are the kinds of things that then would appear in our data as the court's overutilized because there were 6 people utilizing the court for that time period. So we did a chart like that for the 13 items, the activities and the locations that I talked about earlier, and then we applied a growth factor here. I will say here, just real quick here, so if you look here, there's 119 cells on this slide, and on this slide, 8 of them are over 100% utilization. Now, a couple of them are just barely tripped over, 102, 106, et cetera. That's current utilization today. Then if you fast forward and say the main village is going to grow another 20%, what happens then? And this is then what that forecasted utilization would look like if you applied that growth factor in the future. So again, you got the same 119 cells. Here you have 19 of them that are above 100%. Again, some of them just barely. You've got 103, you got 100. So some of them just barely tripped that. That's roughly 16% of the cells in the sample set here that were above 100% capacity. So, as I said, there are 26 charts like this. 13 that are current use, 13 that are future use. They are summarized on this chart here by looking at average utilization. So down the left, we have the exercise rooms and the locations where they're at, pickleball courts and their locations, tennis courts, etc. The blue bars show you the average utilization of those facilities today. And then the orange bars show the additional growth that we would forecast in terms of utilization as we reach build out. And as you can see from this chart, based on average utilization, we appear to be fine in terms of our facilities. Let me step back here to this chart real quick. So one of the things you can look at and say, let's pick April the 20th there, which is a Thursday at 8 a.m. We were at 133% capacity, or we would be at 133% capacity based on forecasted growth. Do you build a new pickleball court because of that? Well, look at the time before. At 6 a.m., we were 70% utilized. At 10 a.m., we were 60% utilized. At noon, it was 30. There are times of the day where utilization is way under. You look at different days of the week, utilization is way under. So the Long-Range Planning Advisory Committee couldn't, in good faith, I don't think, say to you, this would tell you you need more pickleball courts. You're going to have time of day issues, time of use issues, as we do in all of our facilities, where we may need to think about how do we do a better job of scheduling and balancing the utilization of our facilities. So this final chart here, or near final for this initial part of the analysis here, shows you those activities and those locations. The column near the center there shows the percentage of time currently that those facilities are overutilized, and then you can see the Wellness Center and the Chota fitness classes are the biggest pain points there. And then the future utilization, forecasting growth. Now, fitness classes are something that's a little bit fungible, right? If fitness classes are full, you can add more fitness classes as long as you can find a time of day and an instructor to do those classes. So, you wouldn't necessarily need a new building. You would need to find a time of day, and do we have an instructor that can, fulfill that class? All right, so conclusions from this portion of the analysis here. So as I said, I think parks and rec facilities have sufficient capacity now and through build out. I think there is one caveat here that I should say, though. That's based on what we know today about the kinds of recreation activities that people pursue today. If I were doing this presentation 20 years ago, I might not have had my crystal ball out to say, gee, pickleball is going to be a really big thing, and that's going to change how things get utilized. So I don't know what the really next big thing is besides pickleball. Certainly cycling is up, and the Parks and Recreation group has done a good job of repurposing some of their space to accommodate cycling classes, because that is a growing interest. There will be, of course, times when activities will exceed optimal capacity, and the external factors may be a big play there. Do we have instructors? Is there enough parking, et cetera? The final bullet there will give me a segue into some additional findings I want to share with you. There are users that are outside Parks and Recreation that have an impact on this, and we're going to take a look at these additional findings here. So we have multi-use spaces in the village, and in the past we've done these sort of siloed analyses where we've looked at meeting space, we've looked at restaurant space, and we've concluded that GR space is fine, we've got enough space. What that doesn't do is look at what happens in a multi-use facility when you have competing interests that want to use that facility at the same time. You have conflicts, potentially you have conflicts that could arise, and that could give rise to capacity limitations. And two of the biggest areas there are certainly the Chota Gym facility and the Kahidi Community Center. In fact, the Kahidi Community Center is kind of the perfect storm of a multi-use facility. It's a restaurant, it's a golf course, there's exercise rooms there, there's meeting rooms there. Any one of those things by themselves may not tap our capacity there, but if all of those things are happening at once, we may experience a perfect storm of utilization challenges there. This is just a quick summary of what facilities have what activities. You can see Chota and Kahidi are the two that have the most number, the greatest number of things that are going on there. And so Kahidi is a good example. At Kahidi, if you think about the way activities happen, so there's a meeting room there which has to be scheduled. And so you may have people from the meeting using the restaurant facility. You may have walk-in people using the facility. there's a dart group that uses the Mountain View patio there. If the dart group is using the Mountain View patio on a day when there's a golf tournament going on, you have this collision that occurs because golfers are coming off and they're wanting to sit on the patio, and the darters are out there playing darts, and maybe there's a meeting going on in the meeting room and the restaurant's full of people trying to dine, and you have this collision of people all trying to use this facility. So I think kind of where that leads us is to this observation here. The occurrence of multiple activities at the same time will probably increase as our population increases. And it may be beneficial for the board and the staff to think about, do we need a more structured process for allocating or prioritizing the usage of our multi-use facilities when there are competing interests? And it may be a simple process. It's like, don't schedule a golf tournament, or don't schedule your big club group meeting on a day that there's a golf tournament going on in that facility, because there'll be a collision that happens there. And also, I think it's important to think about our staff. When these collisions occur, we really put a strain on our staff in terms of trying to keep everybody happy and try and have a good experience for villagers. Think about, again, I'll pick on Kahiti there. You got golfers coming off the golf course. You got diners, just normal diners that walked into the dining facility there. You got people coming from meeting rooms. And, Angie's running around with her head cut off, trying to keep everybody happy, facilitate everybody. Seats are all full. We need to think about, what can we do to make their lives and jobs easier and keep villager satisfaction at a high level. So that is, in a nutshell, the summary findings of our capacity and utilization study. I did not put the 26 tables in your presentation here. If you want them, I can certainly get them for you. But that is our analysis of parks and recreation. So I will stop there and ask if there are any other questions.
Yeah, Phil, good job. Can you go back to slide number 21, please?
I think I probably can. 21?
That's what I said.
Are you sure it was 21? Where are we going here?
On your slide number, your 21st slide, let's go back to the pickleball
It's the utilization.
in the future.
This one?
Next one.
This
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's really curious to me to see that your 2 Thursdays in a row, from 12, 2, and 4, you have overutilization. But I look on both sides, with the exception of maybe the one Monday after that. I don't know why there's a gap in 4 days in there between. It looks like we lost Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but that's just another point. But what I've noticed is that look at the difference between the day before and the day after at all those times.
Yeah.
So what stimulus is there that's driving that? Or is that, in other words, did we manufacture that overcapacity? Did we run a program there and run too much stuff on Thursdays?
So, I don't know whether the pickleballers could tell us, was there an event going on or whatever, but it's back to the point that I made, is you look at some of these pain points, it's like, the hour before or hour after, or the day before or the day after didn't have that, pain point.
So I can help a little bit with that, because pickleball does a pretty good job of scheduling based on level play. So I'll bet where you see those high levels, like on Thursdays at whatever time that is, noon to 4, there's probably a certain level play there that's really very heavy utilization.
Or skills and drills, something like
Yeah, I
that.
don't know, Holly, whether you have any other insight?
Pickleball, I do not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's likely what's happening.
Pickleball club.
And/or weather can impact that, so the utilization could be driven in the prior weeks by bad weather
Yeah.
that, you're not gonna have in the other times, but to your point, yeah.
Because I've been out there in level play when, you have 6-8 people waiting, and you've got like six or 8 active courts for that level, and you still have that many people waiting. So that would drive that number to be plus 100%.
Yeah, the clinics that they run. So thanks for that question, Joel. That's it. I think Holly wanted to offer some observations as well. Holly's on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, but I'll let her.
Phil, thanks to you and your committee for all your efforts. It's
Yeah,
greatly
excellent job.
appreciated. No, it's a lot of hours.
So yeah, hi, everybody. Holly Seguin. I'm the chair of the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. And yeah, great data, great analysis, and yeah, we really appreciate that too. I wanted to add that while we say we have enough capacity, I would just add an asterisk to say that assumes that we're doing everything as we are now, offering all the same programs we are now, and doing everything the same. But yes, things do change in recreation trends, and for instance, when our facilities were built, indoor cycling wasn't even on the radar. Now it's one of our most popular programs. I mean, I've had people say they set, an alarm on their phone so they can make sure to get into the class that they want. So, and we have done a grow in place model. So we did convert a racquetball court to have indoor cycling, but, we may need to expand that in the future. And likewise, mind-body practices. Our award-winning Warriors at Ease program takes place here, not in one of our wellness facilities. So, we have a lot of facilities, but things do change. So I hope if at some point we do have to have changes in the facilities, you won't look at this study and say, oh, nope, you said we had enough capacity. So that may change, and we as a Parks and Rec Advisory Committee will continue to watch the trends, listen to the community, and try and accommodate those things as we can. So I just wanted to add that asterisk.
I also understand the indoor cornhole is a very popular thing now too, which wasn't even thought of or and evolved years ago.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Phil and Holly. Next up is Scott McCrae.
So while Scott's coming up, Phil, you said what's going to be the next big thing, and Holly mentioned it. Mind Body Studio. I'm learning. I'm on this Rec Advisory Committee. I'm the liaison, so that's the next hot thing.
Just so you know, I mean, we've had discussions about should we have a yoga studio, a dedicated yoga studio somewhere, which would be a new facility, right? So, yeah.
Thank you, John. I think everybody knows me by now. So I'm going to just very quickly, if you came to the town hall, some of this will be repetitious. I do have, since it's been an extra week and there's been a lot of comments, I'm going to try and update you on what those comments were and what the progress was over the past week. So, as I mentioned, we have completed the concrete for the cart path that goes behind the pro shop and goes all the way up to the starter shack. The green, which is the practice green, which is where the new parking lot will go, we're about 35% complete there with the excavation. Obviously, with the weather that we've had recently, we've been unable to excavate there, so we've spent most of the time cleaning up materials from the site. We had torn out the cart path, the old cart paths, all the concrete. We've removed all of that concrete now. We've hauled off a lot of the what we call spoils, but there's two kinds of spoils out there. The topsoil that's at the upper a foot or two of the dirt throughout, that's going up behind the golf maintenance buildings over on Davis Ferry Road. We're using that. We will bring that back on site when we get into the landscaping phase and the final grading of those areas. The wonderful red clay that we have here, as we dig that up, that is our base, and we're moving that over we're using that to build up areas like we had to build up where the new cart path is, and we will have to build up where the new buildings are going. So we'll be, as the weather dries out, we will get into there and start compacting that material and moving it there. We did tear out the cart path, as I mentioned, behind the 9th green. That limited access down to the boat docks. We've replaced that area with all that concrete with gravel, and we'll be trying to get the cart path behind the 9th green. We've got to move a lot of dirt from back there, and then get that cart path in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and again, weather dependent there. We are trying to maintain access to the marina at all times. LUB, their contractor is out there on site now. What they have to do is we've gone to temporary power overhead. They've had to, in order to get down to our transformers, both at the starter shack and at the pro shop, they had to put conduit in there. So they've dropped the conduit in by the pro shop, and they're in the process of excavating to get from the pole that's up by the street over to the starter shack transformer. And I got a very nice email from somebody reminding me that we're not supposed to leave holes open when they excavate out there in the TDOT right-of-way. I do appreciate folks looking at that and letting me know when there's something that perhaps I've overlooked. Let me just say that that's an LUB subcontractor working under LUB guidance, and LUB has gotten the permit for that, and in order to do that excavation, and I have no control over that. That is LUB, and neither does our primary contractor. So while I appreciate the situation there, it is roped off and with red tape, and also they couldn't fill up the hole because then they'd have to dig it back out tomorrow or the next day that they can work. So they had to leave it open overnight. But again, that is something that LUB is responsible for. I'm sorry? They could, but again, I don't have control over that. That's LUB. They do know that they're supposed to follow our safety standards on that, and this is one where they didn't.
That's not our safety standards, that's TDOT's.
I understand.
You can't leave an open hole along the roadway.
I understand that,
Just let them
and they
call
have
LUB
been
or let me
notified.
know who to call.
They
I'll
have
call.
been notified. The second area there that I just wanted to mention is that we did get comments back from the fire marshal. We had submitted, RTC had submitted the construction permit. This is not on the slide there, but this just happened this week, so I figured I better mention this, and that is the State Fire Marshal's Office denied our construction permit because they had a few questions and concerns about our water, fire access, and all. And I'm not sure why they're so concerned with fire suppression on a building that burned down. Most of the questions were actually minor, and I guess that wasn't quite as funny for everybody else as I thought it might be. But they had two key issues, really. One was, and I think this is very appropriate, the fire suppression and design of the vent hoods in the kitchen, which we believe was the source of the original Tanasi fire. So clearly they're paying attention there. We have gotten information from the hood supplier, and RTC will be passing that on to the fire marshal. The other one was access to the back side of the building or the water side of the building. And basically there, I've been working with the fire chief and the deputy fire chief and RTC to provide location for a second fire hydrant and a second source of water. The most obvious second source of water is the lake itself. So we're working on that, and we've got a meeting tomorrow morning with all the involved parties to resolve that, and then we'll pass that information back to the fire marshal for approval of that permit, of our construction permit. Quick TAP update.
Hey, before you move on to TAP,
Yes.
Scott, there's a question online, is when will the new parking lot be ready at Tanasi? Is that March, April timeframe, depending on weather?
Yes, we are looking in the March, April timeframe. We are trying to stay or to catch up for all this bad weather, as I mentioned last month with the holidays at Christmas, New Year's, and then with the, we had the same problem that the golf folks did. When the ground's frozen, you can't dig and compact, and when it's raining, it's really a mud hole. So it's really slowed us down there, but we are aware and trying to get that done well before the peak golf season kicks in, and we know we're under pressure there to get that done. Again, a quick summary on the Jacobs TAP assessment. We had asked Jacobs to go back and look at their 2021 and versus their 2024 TAP recommendations. And for those of you that haven't had those reports, and they're interesting reading, but to basically sit there and say, the big difference there is kind of the terminology I think everybody knows is the TAP recommendations and the TAP 2 recommendations. And the real key difference there is primarily the wastewater storage tank and also the ability to address RDI&I, and then how much work do we do at the other substations. So Jacobs basically came back and said that if we do work with RDI&I and get that under control, we probably most likely do not need a storage tank. And that has been their goal and objective all along. The real reason why they decided or they recommended the wastewater storage tank instead of an aggressive RDI&I plan, and that is because their assessment said that the remediation of RDI&I, just putting in the 5-inch extensions on the tanks, would be ineffective, and that it would take a long period of time. That information was based on information that the POA gave to them early on in their study. And that was on the basis of what we had done back in 2019, 2020, where we had put on somewhere between 500 and 1,000 extensions and saw no real improvement in, or improvement meaning reduction in the I&I. And again, I think I've mentioned this before, but if you have so much I&I that you're overloading a pump station at 150%, and you put on a bunch of extensions and you're still overloading it at 110%, since we had no meters, we didn't see qualitatively that we had an impact, even though we did. So that's why we've got the pilot study and we're moving forward with that. So that's what we're working on in lieu of the waste storage tank. So that has been put on hold indefinitely. They also came back and said that the replacement of the main pump station is more cost effective than the renovation of that pump station. And again, I just wanted to say that basically the rest of their recommendations are pretty consistent with the TAP 2 plan. The biggest difference there is what Jacobs has estimated as the probable cost and versus what the TAP 2 plan says that. And again, all of that has to come back before the board before we do anything. So that's not the report is not the last statement there. We will be back to you before we do anything further.
So Scott, I think maybe another point is that you guys have a meeting scheduled to review this whole replacement versus repair of the main pump station.
We do have that scheduled for next week with PSAC and the board. The other thing that I would just like to mention too is the replacement of the main pump station is one of the 2 grants. We have from Loudoun County and TDEC as part of the American Rescue Plan. We have 2 grants, $1 million, round numbers, $1 million for the wastewater storage tank and $1 million for the main pumping station. That requires us to do a couple of things, and I'll get to the more details later, but it's pertinent here, and that is that the construction has to be capital improvements, so that if we replace and repair and replace the main pump station, that would be just maintenance and would not qualify. So we would negate the million, we would have to give up the $1 million there and all of the work that was done for that. So if we're even close to that $1 million for the difference between replacement versus repair, Now you get a brand-new pump station for essentially no additional cost because a third party has paid for that cost. Just a consideration for that. Yes, part of that. Obviously, they're paying 70%, we're paying 30, or 30, 65, and we're paying 35. So, and again, why we did have a meeting with. Let's see, I'm on the wrong slide. Okay, we did have a meeting with TDEC and Loudoun County about a week or so ago. Basically, they advised that we can update our schedule and our plans for those two grants. And what that will allow us, we believe what that will allow us to do is to redirect some of those storage tank funds to the main pump station, and they seemed very amenable to that. Now, we have to go through the formal process of going ahead and doing that and requesting that. They also did say just because we've put the storage tank either on hold or even should we not do it, it was mentioned to us that we very likely could get the engineering costs, their portion of that, when we paid our portion of that as well. So that would not be just total sunk costs. Plans changed. They said they recognize that. Right now, they're holding our invoices because they are waiting on an asset management, and that should say asset management plan, not an assessment management plan, so I apologize for that typo there. And UT has an extension office that will help us prepare that. So that's something that Public Works and I will be taking on in order to do that. And then the other thing that puts a little pressure on us to kind of keep moving forward with this, and that's why we're trying to, on relatively short notice, either move forward with this or to get these meetings in place very quickly, and that is all of the work and all of the invoices have to be submitted to TDEC not later than September 30th of 2026. So we have to be essentially complete with the construction. It doesn't have to be started up and in operation, but it has to have had final inspection and ready to start up, ready to commission and all. And all of the invoices have to be in, which means the work has to be more than substantially complete because we have to have received the invoices from our subcontractors, and then we have to get that off in the appropriate format to TDEC and Loudoun County and all. So that's why I'm trying not to slow down and yet at the same time accommodate the processes that we have here, which is to go through the PSAC, the FAC, the board, and of course incorporate as many of the community suggestions as we get. We've got a lot of good people here, and I appreciate the support and help that I get.
So I think a good point to make here is that we may still need the tank. We may. But the whole point you're making here is that even if we do, we're going to be delaying it, so there's no way we're going to have that done now by September of 2026. So therefore, we want to redirect our potential funds from TDEC to other projects that we hope can get done in that timeframe, right?
Yes, Marty,
I mean, just for clarification for everybody, that's why you're doing this.
Yes, absolutely. That's why we want to keep moving forward with this so that we can preserve as much of that as possible. And then at the same time, while we're working on the RDI&I efforts and getting the RDI&I not only at Kahidi to deal with that, but also to deal with it at the main village, that also gives LUB the opportunity to move forward with their plans and a lot of the other things that the people have talked about. Well, if LUB is doing this, that will help us out, and maybe that will eliminate the need for storage tank. It gives us the opportunity to assess that as well, so to continue to move forward. So all of this is part of the overall objectives that we're attempting to accomplish here. Oops, wrong way. No? Yeah, wrong way. There we go. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. Let's pay attention. Okay, so the RDI&I efforts with this pilot study, basically, as I mentioned, we are doing tank inspections and we're installing meters to monitor both the wet and dry flow. Our two inspectors have done in the first couple of weeks a little bit over 330 inspections. And these are pretty comprehensive inspections. Initially, if we were just going to put on, if we were just going to put 5-inch extensions, what we'd be looking for is just the low-hanging fruit. Any tank that's low-lying that might have water directed to it, we're actually popping lids on all the tanks so we can look in and take a look at the internals, see if we can see any of the connections. Some we can, most we can't, but we can at least look at and see the where the electrical lines come out, and if there's anything else that might be penetrating into those tanks. We found one the other day that had some roots from an adjacent tree that were actually penetrating through the top of the tank. It took a 5-man crew about 7 hours to make the repairs on that tank, but they were able to do so. That was one where during the rainstorms, there was the alarm was on continuously, and they just couldn't get the water out of that tank fast enough. There have been no alarms, and everything is working now since they fixed that particular tank. We've identified another one that we did that on Monday. We turned that over to Public Works. They were a little bit busy yesterday preparing for the weather, so they have not gotten to that, but they will. That's the next tank on their hit list to go after to repair that one as well. Basically, so far, the results from the pilot study, what we're going to do is we've been identifying all the low-lying lids, the ones that are potential sources of I&I. That will then be turned over. We've ordered the spares or the new materials that are needed to put those extensions on, and they will be given to the team. I know when they went, I've got an estimate about how long it took them to go and do that work when they did the first survey. The difference, I think, here, which will make us a little bit more efficient, is they just had a list of addresses, and they had to drive from here to there, and they kind of organized it because the guys know the communities. But here, because we're going through neighborhood by neighborhood, they will have that list literally by house going down the street and in this neighborhood. So they'll be able to have the right spares. They'll know whether it's a 300-gallon tank or a 7 or 1,000-gallon tank, which require different parts. So they'll have all of that. They'll have that with them. So hopefully we'll be able to shorten the amount of time to do that, and we'll be able to get more work done. And again, once we start in on that, the weather has precluded Public Works from doing that. They've been a little busy taking care of other emergencies within the community. But then I'll be able to come back and tell you how long we think it's going to really take.
One quick question, that other tank that's going to be replaced, the homeowners are aware that you're going to be digging up the tank and taking the fully out?
When we have to make repairs like that, we absolutely tell them. So yes, this is not something that we just sneak up on them and you wake up one morning and all of a sudden there's a backhoe in your backyard and we're digging up your tank.
Yeah, because it's extensive, because I drove by with the one that was replaced. I mean, it was an all-day job, and, they were tearing up the yard and everything like that to get this tank out. So I want to make it, and that's one of the things I think, when you look back at what Jake was saying, they thought we might have to replace a lot of tanks in some of this place in the previous study.
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up. I think the real key here is these 5-inch extensions, we are really hoping that they will get us where we need to go. And I know there was a report back in 2019 that said if we put all of these extensions on all the tanks, we'll get a 50% reduction in I&I. The qualitative data didn't say that. That's why they stopped. That's why we're trying to get the quantitative data now. But you don't need a 50% reduction to eliminate the storage tank. You just need a good chunk of that. But exactly how much, we won't know until we get some more data. And then again, as we delay the storage tank and implement these, we can also now look at, has LUB firmed up their plans? Have they started to implement? And then what's the timing on their implementation of those things as well? The last thing I just want to mention on this is the reason why all of this is going on in Kahiti is the board has really raised that priority for us, primarily because of the sale of the property that we did. There's some contingencies in that sale, and if there are continued problems at Kahiti, that could jeopardize the sale of that property to the developer. So we have put this high on our list. And again, I want to say that the Jacobs approach to what they're looking at for the redesign of the Kahiti wastewater system is very consistent with TAP 2.0, and that is replace the pumps, put the SCADA system in, put the controls in and out so you can monitor and control the flow and all. And what I'm going to recommend, I think on the next slide, is to move forward with the preliminary engineering report and basis of design for Jacobs. And again, the reason for that is we want to move forward, and I think it's consistent with everything else that we're trying to do here within the TAP overall program. So, and maybe this is a little out of place. I notice you've got a couple of more updates before you get to this, but I am recommending that you approve the $78,000 for the preliminary design study and basis of design report for the main pump station. I believe that you can, I mean, if you want to delay that, I'll stay around and answer any questions should you want to table this part of the request.
That is on the list with all the other funding requests that will go through immediately after Judy's report.
Okay, I didn't know whether it was there or not, and I apologize for having to duplicate there, but it has been through FAC and PSAC.
Hey, Scott, while I got you, while we're here.
Absolutely.
Have we looked at going outside of Jacobs? I mean, Kahiti's a specialty little spot that we've got pretty good data on, and you're improving the data. Have we looked at maybe going to TAS's engineers? I think they use L2CM or somebody like that, or maybe even LUBs. I know they use LJA.
They use LJA. I have not at this point pursued that. I can certainly do so if you would like. Jacobs has a lot of data that they would immediately use. That some of that would have to be redone or it would delay the engineering.
Don't we own that data?
We own the data, so we could certainly give that data to another engineering firm and let them go with that. I would venture to say at this point that Jacobs could make quicker use of that, but that doesn't preclude, if you ask me to go out for another bid or two, I'm more than happy to do that and put that together.
Well, I don't know if we want to put together an RFP or get another opinion. It's just, when I'm looking at $78,000 and for what you and I looked at the other day down there, and we're talking about changing the piping and putting new pumps in, plus the controls, and that $78,000, does that complete the engineering?
That gets us through 30% design. So it
So we're
does,
gonna
the
spend another-
the details engineering would be in addition to that.
So there's another $300,000 on top of that?
That includes construction management, bid support, and all of that.
It might be something we want to revisit.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would like to see us revisit that as well.
Okay.
I don't think I think we've got too many eggs in that basket.
Okay.
I think it's time to look and see what else is out there.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right. I will, I'll just park myself over and wait for the funding part of the program.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. Okay, quick, I'm going to officially approve the IT Advisory Committee charter, even though they've already been operating.
Yep.
Anything to say?
Yeah, the committee actually reviewed, Kevin and I put the original charter together, the committee reviewed it, it's been reviewed by Kevin, so I'm asking to approve, it's a basic charter for any other committee, just a little IT-specific items in there, so there's nothing really different. So I'm asking the board to approve the charter so the committee can move forward.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Any other comments? Questions? All those in favor? 7-0. Okay, Judy, you're up.
Okay, before we get started, Beth had mentioned that there were several people on. Rookie move, apparently, like I've not done this for however many times. So anyway, several people online were asking some questions about the reserve study update, so I just wanted to make a couple of comments. We anticipate that the consultants will be coming in sometime in late April to do their field work. We hope to have a preliminary version of the report sometime by the end of May, at which time the FAC and the board would evaluate that and have further discussions with the consultant, and we would definitely plan to have a final version of the report available in time, in summertime sometime, and be able to use that during our budgeting process for 2026. So that's my update. Let's take a look at our balance sheet. Our cash balance is now $32.9 million. That's up by $2.1 million since December. We are earning a weighted average rate of 4.67% on our reserve balance and 3.98% on much of our operating cash. Our balance sheet remains strong. Our total assets are now $70.5 million. That's up $2.5 million since last month. The total liabilities are $17.2 million. That's up $2 million, and primarily due to increases in our unearned revenue. Our debt-to-equity ratio, it remains at 17%, and we've got the numbers over there kind of covered up for accounts receivable on the top right. But the health of our accounts receivable remains strong. The ratio of our allowance for doubtful accounts to the accounts receivable balance is 46% for this month, which is down from, and down is a good thing, from 50% at the end of December, which is, it's covered up, but it's over there. Our accounts receivable balance is up $217,000 this month, and the primary contributor to that increase is the golf-related flex payments on unrelated golf packages. Looking at some information on our suspended accounts, the balance due on suspended accounts is up for the month but down year over year. The current balance of $904,000 represents 46% of our current accounts receivable balance. And again, I always like to remind us that suspended accounts are those that are more than 90 days past due, and the balance in the allowance for doubtful accounts is account balances that are more than a year past due. Let's take a look at our unearned income down there on the bottom right. The current balance is $8.5 million in total. We are once again seeing those upfront payments from residents for 2025 for assessments, golf, and rec payments. And those payments provide us with a significant boost in our cash balance that we utilize throughout the year. You can, again, see the composition of all of the contributors to that balance on the bottom right side of the slide. And this balance includes $1,471,000 of our water sewer infrastructure asset fee funds that are collected and as yet unspent. Moving on in that direction, here is a checkbook glance of the fund. The beginning balance at on January the 1st, end of December, was $1,113,000. $453,000 was contributed to the account in January. We spent $91,000 on 2 projects during the month, and that would be the elevated water tower and the main pump station, the yellow number and the green number. As a result of these transactions, we will see $91,000 of earned income on our income statement, while the remainder of the funds collected are still in the unearned revenue account, which is the number I just showed you on the previous slide on the balance sheet, which was $1,471,000. And again, just to remind you, as we spend these funds on the 5 approved projects, that's when they convert from being unearned to earned, and they will hit the income statement as opposed to being in that unearned balance on the balance sheet. The account earned $2,426 of interest in January, so the ending balance is now $1,478,000. Looking at our consolidated P&L for the month of January, we had total revenue of $2,695,000, which was $26,000 better than our forecast for the month. Primary contributors to this variance were food service, which was $96,000 better than forecast, and golf revenue, which was $63,000 below the January forecast. Food service had several well-attended events in January, and as for golf, as Casey and Wells told us earlier, there were a number of weather challenges for them in the month of January with snow and a lot of rain and just cold temperatures. We beat our prior year revenue number by $364,000, and again, if we remember January last year, even though we've had some bad weather this year, January last year was a little worse. We had a lot of snow and ice, and that took a toll on a lot of our amenities. Our expenses for the month, excluding the cost of sales, totaled $1,817,000, and we finished $98,000 better than the budget for the month. The primary contributor to this result was maintenance expenses, which were $85,000 under the budget. Most of this was from various public works departments, maintenance of sewer lines and common property, and some sewer tank installation expenses. Golf maintenance and food services also had some unspent maintenance expenses for the month. Our net income for January totaled $495,000, and if we add back that depreciation and amortization expense, we get our net surplus, which was $696,000 for January, which is $330,000 better than our budget expectations and $335,000 better than the prior year. There's just no good place for that, Karen. Sorry about that. Yeah. Get out of the way, Steve. The board reserve spending report, our total reserve spending budget, including the carryover from 2024, is $21.1 million. That's those two numbers on the bottom left, the $5,047,000 plus the $16,071. The authorized spending for these projects to date is $11.7 million. And then the divisional totals that we've spent so far this year in January were $365,000. Okay, and I always call this the Steve report. This shows us a look at our net surplus from operations on the left-hand side. We just talked about that. Our income statement produced a net surplus of $696,000, and in January we spent $365,000, and that strategic column includes Tanasi rebuild and also the accounting system. We've got, so the spending is included there, and we are left with a net surplus after reserve spending of $331,000. So now, with all that said, we have 12 different funding requests for this month, totaling $676,000. 7 are for public works and 5 are for golf. 8 of these require board approval or discussion, and the other 4 are honorable mentions. So, do y'all have any questions for me, or do you want to jump right into? I'll let Mr. Matt take over.
Okay, so building on my experience at FAC on Friday, I was going through these long presentations, and Mike Harrington said, effectively, he's not here to defend himself, but he said, just hold on. Budgeted, within budget, and is it budgeted? Did it come in within budget? And did you conduct a procurement process? Okay, so for the sake of the fact that we're here at 4 o'clock, I'm going to open with those. If you want a detailed discussion, I'm happy to do it. Okay?
Yep.
All right, street light head replacements, not budgeted. Okay, so I'll run through this one. We have several hundred of these TVPOA-owned streetlights, and I just want to make real clear, these are our assets. These do not belong to LUB. They are on black poles that are generally about 12 to 15 feet high, and they're on neighborhood streets. As far back as anyone in Public Works can remember, they were purchased by TVPOA, installed, and maintained by LUB. In the fall, LUB indicated they would no longer be able to repair or replace these lights. They are, I said hydrogen sulfide, and that's not correct. That's sulfuric. I know, don't tell anyone what that is. So they emit the yellow light. It's something that's, you just see, if you know what you're looking at, they jump right out at you. Replacements for those, hard to find these days, not impossible, but difficult in the sense that we're into the world of LED. They offered Public Works a cost of $400 per light to retrofit them. With approximately 175 of these lights that are not working, the estimated cost was going to be about $70,000. Now, mind you, there was no promise or guarantee about at what rate each light would be replaced at $400 a piece. So is difficulty there, obviously, with the cost, but also the effectiveness and how quickly we can move through that list. Public Works has the capability to retrofit and replace them for approximately $70 a light. After discussing the matter internally, Public Works was of the opinion we could provide better service at less expensive cost by assuming the responsibility of the lights. This may be in a future part of the presentation, but if I forget, while we're out there, we're straightening poles and we're putting in an independent fuse while we're there, so that in the future, and I'll elaborate on this, we don't need LUB's involvement to repair a light. However, to achieve these repairs, LUB must be on site to shut the light off at the transformer. They don't want us in their transformers, and quite frankly, if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't either. Public Works is working on a tentative schedule of coordinating with the LUB for the first and last Wednesday of every month, weather dependent, LUB staff availability dependent, at a cost of $1,000 a month. When Public Works staff has been able to secure coordination from LUB, about 25 to 30 lights per month are repaired. So if we're sitting at 175, we're looking year and a half to get this done. However, the more work is done, the more Public Works is realizing some of these light heads need full replacement. So all of these street lights, high pressure sodium light bulbs, are being converted to LED. Also, while making these repairs, I just said that, inline fuse, straightening the poles. In the village, we've got 3 styles of light heads. One's a newer light head that was installed in about the last 5 years. The other was installed about 10 to 15 years ago. The oldest are around 30 years old and are among the first lights the village installed. That third sub-bullet is what I'm after here. These older lights are in Tokwa, Chota, Yacht Club, scattered around in different neighborhoods where homes were built in the early 90s. These light heads are very hard to work on. Just to start, the screws are seized, so you can't get into the light head. And most of the tops are broken and beyond repair. I think I put in your packet a couple of pictures of what the new ones and the old ones look like. It's a small area in which to access the guts to replace the light head. So far, as of January the 30th, we've identified 44 that are in this age condition. So we've done something in the neighborhood of 90 to 120 where we were able to complete the $77 a piece. Now we're realizing the more we get into it, when we find these really old ones, we can't make the fix. The heads we wish to purchase are made by American Electric. The model is a Revolution LED series. Bill Bush from PSAC helped us pick out the correct light that he thought would be the least intrusive, but yet add the safety elements. Puts light out on all four sides. Public Works is requesting 50 of these light heads. They come in pallets of 10, so 5 pallets. This will allow us to have some spares in stock so that when we run into these lights during the course of repair, we can't do the $77 change out. We would have these in stock and can complete it while we have LUB on site. We did obtain 3 quotes ranging in price from about $18,300 to $25,000. Again, that's total price. That's not per pallet. This purchase requests an amount not to exceed $20,000 to purchase 5 pallets. The reason this isn't budgeted is I would say it was probably September or October, which at that point my budget for all intents and purposes was done. But really by November was the point at which we had done enough of these to realize we don't have what we need. So that's the reason it's not budgeted. Given there was no guarantee with LUB's offer at $400 per light, when necessarily those repairs would occur, and assuming we stay on track at about 25 to 30 a month, I still think we're more effective and more efficient than if we paid LUB to complete these repairs. The purchase will not complete the entire change out of the old style light heads. We're looking for what approximately we believe would be our 1-year allotment. And then we can look towards budgeting this in future years. And I've got a recommended motion for you.
So John, I will move that the board approve the purchase of 50 American Revolution LED series lights in an amount not to exceed $20,000.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions from the board? Okay, all those in favor? 7-0.
Okay, HVAC preventive maintenance. This is an operational contract that we have had in place. Didn't necessarily even understand whether the board needs to make a formal motion to approve. It's budgeted. Oh, they do? Okay. It is budgeted. It came in under budget, and yes, we did a procurement process, but we only had one vendor respond to the procurement. And it's over $50,000, yes.
John, in the interest of time, I will make a motion that the board approve a 1-year renewal with Interstate Mechanical for preventive maintenance filter replacement on our HVAC units in an amount not to exceed $90,348.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? This is a contract we've had for many years, and they, as far as I can tell and what I've heard, they do a great job, so.
Yeah, they do.
All those in favor? 7-0.
Okay, meter replacement. In 2024, Public Works staff completed a pilot study to assess the performance of digital meters. On average, consumption was 7% greater when compared with the meter that we pulled out of the ground. Board Member Reed, I sent you that entire ROI analysis. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it, but I gave you everything I got on the topic.
Just since I haven't seen that, what's the ROI?
Dadgummit. I sent it, and I hope that would be the, let me think for just a moment. So, the meters that we bought are 20-year assets that, to my recollection, depending on consumption, and we did non-irrigation consumption, so more stringent test on ROI, was about a 3 to 9 year payoff. Recognizing that what works against the meters is if you have less than $2,000 a month consumption, I excluded that from the analysis, because if you have an increase in consumption from 1,300 to 1,700, you get no ROI on that. So I felt like I picked a fairly rigorous set of standards under which to perform the analysis. It was approximately 168 meters installed in townhomes in the month of, if I'm recalling, January of 2024.
Good. I approve of these. I think it's a great idea. If we're adding to something that isn't technically broken.
Right.
Right, but we're doing it because it's more efficient, both quantitative and qualitative. We need to have ROIs for that, so helps us make a decision, but thank you.
Totally agree. And briefly on that topic, we are after the mechanical reads, okay? So the mechanicals have an impeller in it. Acts like a windmill. Impeller breaks down, all of a sudden consumption goes down. Board president was referring to that. So in my experience, the best bet is when you know they're reaching end of life, get them out of here. And that's what's after, particularly with this. Plus, we pick up the benefit of fewer manual reads. The plague, I believe, when I arrived here, was the manual mechanical meters. And that's what led to, I think, a lot of issues related to 40-day billing cycles, taking forever to get the meter reads done, that kind of stuff, which I think this has resolved it. So in 2024, we did 1,457 meters. Were purchased at a unit cost of $220.79. In 2024 and 2025, primarily, we're after the mechanical meters that are manually read, first priority. That's about 159 of those meters are targeted for replacement in this request. And we have mechanical drive-by meters that are beyond 10 years old, which is my second priority. Those are what I'm after as well, because we are at end of life with those mechanical meters. 2025 budget includes $166,853 to replace the remaining 159 mechanical manually read meters, 595 mechanical drive-by meters that are beyond 10 years of age. This request includes the proposed 754 meters, and because we got a better price on the meters, as a result, we do need to keep spare meters. Okay, so even if it's not approaching 8 to 10 years old, meters do stop working. With construction in the neighborhood, meters do get broken, so we have to have some spares. So I've provided you with a recommended motion, again, approved by PSAC and FAC.
So, John, I will make a motion that the board approve the purchase of 859 Camstruck Flow IQ 2100 AMR drive-by meters, not to exceed $159,385.
Seconded by Marty. Any other comments? All those in favor? Aye, aye, 7.
All right, truck replacement for the maintenance division. In Public Works, the maintenance division is building maintenance, landscape maintenance, housekeeping. There is one truck proposed for replacement with this request. It's a 2006 Chevrolet 3/4 ton gas vehicle in the landscape division with, as of February 3rd, an odometer reading of 225,763 miles. It's used by the landscape division. It pulls the trailer with several riding mowers and lawn equipment to all the sites maintained by the landscape division. It's a crew cab because there's almost 3, sometimes 4 employees in the vehicle. The adopted 2025 budget includes $57,218 with this. We complied with your purchasing guidelines. That is the result of our exercise. We have 3 bids ranging in price from $53,700 to almost $58,000. Again, we go through this, and I'm not going to keep going through this, but the procurement process basically envisions get 3 quotes. Well, when we get 3 quotes, we're looking at 3 vehicles sitting on the lot. By the time we go through this process, that vehicle may not be sitting on the lot. So we're asking for an amount not to exceed $59,100, buying me 10%. We're going to go back out and do another procurement, and I won't exceed $59,100. If the vehicle that was quoted by Jackie Jones is sitting on the lot, off we go.
Quick question, Matt. Is that a diesel?
No, it is not. Another gas. I'll go diesel, don't get me
I know
wrong.
you'll add probably 10,000 to it.
10,000.
Yeah.
The diesel upgrades to 10,000.
Yep, we've been okay with the gas,
We got 225,000 out of the last one, huh?
yes.
Okay.
But don't get me wrong, if you change your mind, I'll go diesel.
John, I will move that the board approve the recommended purchase of one 3/4 ton crew cab truck not to exceed $59,100.
I'll second.
Questions, comments? No? All those in favor? No, there must be more. Golf has some. Yeah. Maybe back up to the list. Golf has 3.
3 with 2 being under 50. We're going to start at the top. 2 John Deere Pro Gator 2020A gas utility vehicles. We're requesting this to replace 2 2001 model Toro Workmans at Kahiti. Both have surpassed 3,500 hours. Toro no longer supports this style utility vehicle. They discontinued this model along with most of the repair parts. Luckily, we're still able to find some parts in the used market. Find some parts on the used market or through eBay or other golf courses that have this vehicle that are no longer in use. We've been able to buy some spare parts off of them. The Pro Gator utility vehicle is dynamic. It uses, it's a dynamic vehicle for our operation. It's what we use for towing any heavy equipment such as greens rollers, trailers with sod, used in any renovation projects. This is what we would consider a heavy-duty utility vehicle. We did do a procurement with against Toro with Smith Turf and Irrigation and Lads, which sells the Cushman XD Truckster. This was the lowest bid for these 2 vehicles. And we do plan to sell the 2 Toro Workmans. Actually, already have a buyer lined up, so we're not getting much for them because they are pretty run down and ragged out, but they are 20, 23 years old.
So, John, I'll go ahead and move that the board approve the purchase of 1 John Deere Pro Gator.
That's 2, I'm sorry.
2. Oh, my bad. 2
2 for the price of 1.
Pro Gators, an amount not to exceed $78,241.
Second by Marty. Any other questions? Since they're 23 years old, I'd vote to approve.
Yeah, we hang on to stuff. Moving down the list, this is to request the purchase to order 2 Agri-Metal 660 greens rollers for Kahiti. These rollers will replace the 2011 model Salsco rollers that have become unreliable over the years. Jordan's recorded multiple hydraulic hose replacement, head gasket issues, hydraulic drive motor failures, issues with carburetors, and the heavy drums that are actually the rollers are starting to thin out from years of use. These Agri-Metal rollers will be used specifically for greens. They're designed specifically for greens. They have a little bit smaller roller on them, a wider swath width, much more efficient for rolling greens ahead of play. And in the growing season, in the heat of the summer, we'll actually use these in lieu of mowing to maintain green speeds and decrease stress on our turf. And I spoke with Jordan. I know we discussed this in the FAC. We do feel like we can sell one of the older units, but we do want to keep one of them because this is a perfect roller for smoothing out sod when we do sod work on the golf course, especially around greens and on tee boxes, drainage work, anything we can use it for to smooth things out ahead of mowers. We do feel like we need to keep at least one of them.
So I will move that the board approve the purchase of 2 Agri-Metal 660 green rollers, an amount not to exceed $55,128.
Second by Marty. Comments?
Yeah, thanks, Wells, for going back and not wanting to keep the 2. Appreciate that.
The third request that is...
All those,
I'm sorry.
Everybody in favor?
Moving on to the third request that is in excess of $50,000. This is to replace a 2004 model it's a greens top dresser, so it's basically two implements, but this request covers the utility vehicle that the top dresser sits on. So currently we have a 2004 model Toro Workman that carries a 2002 model top dresser. The Workman has over 3,200 hours on it. The machine is quite worn down from years of use. It's always carrying a full load of sand, which essentially is if you have a front end loader, it's an entire scoop will go in that hopper. The engine has gotten weak, where we can't get through the golf course with a full load of sand. If we do have a full load of sand, we have to take alternate routes to avoid steep hills. The hydraulic system on the top dresser has become very weak, so the way that hydraulic system works, it turns a conveyor belt that drops sand on these spinners, and the spinners then disperse the sand on the green from a very light dusting of sand that the golfer may not even notice to a very heavy layer of sand that we need to go down evenly across the green surface. The hydraulic system has just come to the point where it can't keep up. Again, this machine is extremely important to our operation. We use it at least once a week throughout the growing season for light top dressings, and then we use it spring and fall for heavy top dressings on greens, as well as when we do heavy top dressings on fairways and tee boxes following any sort of core aerification. It's a huge piece to our greens management program. We feel like we've done all we could to keep this machine running, and actually we've deferred this the last 2 years. So we feel like it's time to replace, and we do have a buyer lined up that is willing to take it. So.
And we have one of these at each golf course.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, John, I'll move that the board approve the purchase of one spinner top dresser for the Tanasi Golf Course in an amount not to exceed $58,081.
I'll second.
Comments, questions? All those in favor? Okay.
Would you like me to go through these other two, John, that are below the 50?
John, I don't see the need. I mean, they've been reviewed by the Golf Advisory Committee. They're within the
we reviewed all these at the budget already.
Yes, sir.
So no.
Okay.
And just to comment that just because there's a lot, like in January and February, a lot of these requests, doesn't mean that's what gets spent every month. Somebody made the comment last month, well, you approved $800,000, does that mean we're going to have, $8-9 million worth of spending this year? No, most of the stuff is front-end loaded for a reason. There's long lead times on a lot of these pieces of equipment, so golf may not even get some of these items until fall.
I'm sorry, John, not to interrupt. In fact, a lot of these things we knew were on our list, and we went ahead and kind of put a feeler out there to our suppliers, and everything on this list we should be able to get within the next month.
Okay, so things have changed.
Yeah. For these pieces, some others we're still waiting on.
But anyway, so no, a lot of this capital requests are front-end loaded in the first quarter, just so that we have them for when we need them, like the leaf pickup and the summer peak of golf. So thanks.
Perfect, thank you.
I think.
Yeah, so we still have what Scott brought up in terms of the engineering study and initial design services for the Kahiti main pump station in an amount not to exceed $78,000. And I will go ahead and make a motion that the board approve that, and we can see if there's a second, and then I'll state why I think we should go forward.
I'll second it.
So I think basically it would be in our benefit to get somebody's engineering eyes on this as quickly as possible, because there are multiple options still on the table with Kahiti wastewater. And there's no reason that I can think of at this point in time that we question that Jacobs can't handle this. We've got a development staring us down the throat, so to speak, in terms of it's coming, assuming the purchaser satisfies all the contingencies. I just think at least to get an idea from Jacobs as to what they see and what kind of path we're looking at is to our benefit at this point in time.
And this is consistent with both TAP and TAP 2.0 of replacing and upgrading pumps. So that's the main thing we're looking at here, not putting in a tank, not putting a new line into TAS. It's really looking at just the pumps, which is consistent, and those are, I believe, 26-year-old pumps. So,
I'm with you on the whole first part, but the last part you lost me. I'm not with Jacobs. I want to see if we can talk to somebody else. But if this is approved, $78,000 for an engineering company to do that study, it may end up being Jacobs, but as long as this isn't dedicated to just Jacobs. Is this dedicated to just Jacobs or any engineering fee to do this?
That's whatever you tell me to do here, but I would also just add, I would recommend we go with Jacobs, but my thought there, Joel, is so far, this is their first proposal. Let me rephrase. This is the first proposal that they prepared for us to do Kahiti. All of their other proposals that they have given to us at this time, at this stage they have been well under budget, and they've been able to work in the approved budget with the almost unlimited amount of repeats and redos that we have asked. So every time we give them a change in direction, they have been able to do that within the budget and pretty much within the time that we've requested. So this, I suspect they would handle this the same way, that this would be the top end. The other thing that I will say is that once we get to the 30% design, that is a whole package that we could go out to more people to do and not lose the momentum that we've got, not lose the timeliness that we've got. So that's why I'm recommending that we go forward with Jacobs rather than go out for a full bid package with others. But that's all, that's fine. I'm sorry.
All my question is, does this 78 lock us into Jacobs, or it can go any way we want? That's all I want to know. Because if it's for Jacobs, I'm saying no. I'll just tell you right now, I'll vote no. But if it's for any engineering firm, I'm going to approve it.
So you tell me which way you want to go. I'm recommending Jacobs for this phase of the study.
But
So
is this recommendation, doesn't say Jacobs on there.
I recommend.
It doesn't say Jacobs.
Okay, that's.
Well, the 78, I understand, 78 is for Jacobs, but at
This
which point
would be, this proposal, this request is to engage Jacobs to do the first two steps, the 10% and the 30%.
But then we could take that package.
Then you take the basis of design report to any engineering firm you want to do.
For the rest of it,
I thought that's what their study was in May of '24. We paid them, I don't know what we paid them, but there's a 50-page study here.
That was a master plan. That was a master
For
plan.
Kahiti. And they go through and they say to rebuild the new Kahiti pump station, $1.4 million. That's with 100% contingency.
That is correct. That's with 100% contingency.
And they're telling me that they want $78,000 to do 30% engineering.
That's different than the master plan study, yes.
I don't know that that's the right solution.
Scott, how much of a delay would it be to get a quick bid on this?
Normally go ahead, Matt.
I just want to step in here real quick, and I'm going to preface this by saying it's just the life I've lived. But in the life I lived, you may not bid engineering services. You can do a request for qualifications. You can see who they got in their shop and how big their shop is. You can assess what they got going and how likely they are to satisfy your schedule. You can talk to customers who they've done design work for. But at that point, my experience always has been you do not bid these professional services at all, whether it be accounting, architectural, any of it. And then you take your highest ranked firm and you negotiate, and if you can come to a price you live with, then you recommend it. Are we on the same page there?
We agree in that space, but the
Okay.
question that I've got here is, they're telling me with 100% contingency, $1.4 million to have the station built, and they're wanting $78,000 just to do 30% engineering.
We're there. You and I understand your point, and I'm not surprised this is coming up. All I'm trying to get at is, let me balance if I can. You're saying no Jacobs. I get what you're saying. I shouldn't point to people. elements of the board are saying, hurry up and go, get going, we have development coming. It's a path that I think you guys need to choose. Either go shop engineering services, which we can do, we're soldiers, we'll march, or go fast, and that is not shopping engineering services. So that, I feel like.
It's the same old adage, you can have a good, fast, or quick, or cheap, but you can't have all three.
Right. and
We
that-
agree in that space.
At this point, I think if you and I are agreeing on what the purchasing process, the selection process is, then I'm okay with that, but I would want everyone to understand, in my mind, we would do really well to be even back here in April to show you somebody else's name and somebody else's price.
Okay, but are you telling me that I'm gonna have this pump station for $1.4 million and it'll meet all our needs?
But I am not prepared to tell you anything about that. I think what we're saying is, the next step is to ferret out this issue of two pumps working together, producing less than
300 gallons.
than one pump working by itself. There's an issue there. I'm not absolutely certain I understand it. Maybe he does, maybe you do, but I'm not clear on what that means. It could be a phased process. Address that, then talk about the rest of it. I don't see the path. I just kind of am stuck with, do you want me to go fast? Would you like us to go fast, or do you want to shop engineering services? Either is fine with me. I can live with it. But when you're asking me, what's the outcome? I'm not prepared to tell you. I don't know.
Like I said, they're wanting, that's 30%, so you're gonna triple that, almost $500,000 to engineer, with 100% contingency of 1.4 million. And if you're gonna spend half the money on engineering, you're only gonna give half to buy all the parts and hire the contractor. I don't see how that adds up. That's just, I'm looking at the numbers that they've provided us only recently.
So, Mike, what do you think we should do?
I'd like to go out to another engineer. I can have them on site next week. And I'd like to go through and change the two pumps out and look at the piping design and then get with TAS to make sure they can take the deal. And I guarantee I can get this thing going next week.
But is that the permanent solution?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, no, the I&I is a permanent solution, but this will ship 500 gallons a minute, which is what you're telling me we've got to ship, maybe probably less. And the I&I is the permanent solution, but this will solve it, and then we can look at going back and doing the odor control on the SCADAs. But you guys are wanting a guarantee right now to get this thing going. And if you want to get going, change the pumps, change the piping, get with TAS, make sure they can take the water and get her on the road. And continue with the I&I. We'll do the odor upgrades because it needs it. I'm not arguing that one bit, and we need the SCADA controls, but I can get that thing working right now where there's no overflows. You guys, I have a hard time spending $400,000 with Jacobs to do a pump station that's not much bigger than that screen.
So have you discussed this with PSAC?
Haven't had much of a chance. We've all
Okay.
been running.
Okay, so.
And actually, a PSAC meeting was scheduled for Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, but we don't know that yet. We still have three options with Kahiti, potentially.
Three options in what
Three
space?
in terms of a pump station.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get to the point in time where we have a higher degree of confidence as to which of those three options is most likely to occur.
That's
We
fair.
don't know that answer today. I wish we did, but we don't. Now, if you want to go out and get another engineering firm, fine, but I'm still struggling with the fact that, there seems to be this concern with Jacobs. They produced the master plan, which is what we had asked them to do.
And we have it. And they're
And we
telling
have
me, and the master plan with 100% contingency has the Kahiti lift station at 1.4. They're right there, they're asking for 500,000 to get the full engineering drawings.
But I thought 350 was was the total engiering.
378,
Really?
380, whatever, 400,000.
395.
Yeah, 400,000.
That's $1 million for the pumps.
And the reason why on a Class 5 cost estimate, you put a 100% contingency on, they also gave you a minus 30%, is because a Class 5 cost estimate, according to the cost accounting standards or the cost estimating standards, has a 92% probability of overrunning your initial Class 5 estimate by 100%. That's why they give us those outer numbers.
And you reviewed this with PSAC, the Kahidi
Yes.
funding request, and
Yes.
they approved that?
Yes, PSAC and FAC.
Okay.
I don't recall that, but I might not have been here.
That was done after you directed us not to do the full amount, so we went back and just said, do the preliminary study, and they've gone back and gotten all of those comments. That's what started the chain, and it's gone through both PSAC and FAC. I believe Judy's got the signed document.
So here's just an idea. I mean, if Mike can get somebody out there next week and come up with a counter proposal, why wouldn't we just defer this decision until we hear back from him?
I'm perfectly fine with that.
If that's going to be like next week, we're not losing much time.
Thanks, Marty.
And I just only have the same comment, the same concern that Mike Braddock has.
And I'm fine if we do take Matt's suggestion is we look at other engineering firms and their capabilities. I mean, I agree, where I came from, you did not shop professional services like that because, for one, they're going to give you a bargain basement price to get their foot in the door. But we got to look at their capabilities and their,
The guys that I'd have out there do all the work for TAS.
yeah. So I'm saying that for a permanent replacement of Jacobs, should we ever get to that point, now this is a one-off kind of project.
I agree. And Kahiti's a special character. It's out
Yes.
there by itself.
Right.
And it's not integrated with anything else other than putting it in the line and shipping it to TAS.
So Mike, you're saying that TAS talked to their engineering provider who does all the work for Kahiti and all TAS. Does
Correct.
TAS, which includes Kahiti.
Correct.
I think it's a great opportunity.
And you're only saying replace the pump, you're not saying doing any engineering for that.
Let them
correct?
look at it, because we've got to submit it to TDEC anyway. Let them look at it, let them look at the piping. We've got a schematic already in this presentation that we got from Public Works, and tell them, hey, here's our flow ratios, what can we do to improve that? And then continue to work on the I&I, and then tell them, hey, we want to be able to put variable frequency drive motors on them eventually and tie them all into a SCADA system. But we can do this incrementally right now and get the pumps on order and get them coming and get rid of, I understand our concern to get the property done. I just want to get it done for the best value.
So are you saying, just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, are you okay with going ahead with authorizing 78,000, just not restricting it to Jacobs?
Yes.
Okay, so, see, we had a motion, we had a second, so I will offer an amendment to the motion to make it clarified that this 78,000 for engineering design services for Kahiti is not designated to a specific engineering firm.
And I can support that 100%.
I can too.
And I'll amend my second on that too.
And I guess my only thing there too, and I know you will, but just be sure PSAC is engaged in part of it.
I already got text.
I mean, you're on.
I've already
yeah.
got text.
You're the liaison to the committee, so yeah. And Mike, yeah.
So,
Question,
Yep.
who decides whether it's Jacobs or not?
The board will decide once we decide, get the other proposals back or the other ideas back. But I got to think that's a board decision. Oh, it could run it through PSAC, but it goes through PSAC first and see if they come to fruition there, and then we'll take the PSAC recommendation to the board. But ultimately, the board's got to decide because we're spending more than $50,000.
Right, but I think the key
Well-
there is PSAC recommendation.
Yes.
Right
And it
now,
goes through
you're
finance
approving- Right now, you're approving 78,000, but not defining the supplier.
Right.
When you go through your bidding or whatever you're going to do, it must be run through PSAC to get a recommendation from PSAC for the board to act, my opinion.
Absolutely correct.
I have a,
I think we all agree on that. That has to go through PSAC first.
I'm just clarify, just so I'm sure I understand. So this request was for Jacobs for a specific task. Are we changing both the vendor and the task? Because what's the request for if the task is different?
The task is the same.
Task.
Is the task the same?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wasn't sure if you were saying a different solution is what you were
We're
having.
still engineering,
Okay,
but you can go down this path to engineer it, or you can go down this path to engineer it, but you're still engineering.
okay. I just want to make sure we weren't completely changing it and approving something that now doesn't represent what we
understand.
asked. Thank you.
Mike, do you want me to get someone besides your task engineer? We did have, there was one firm who presented a list of capabilities as part of the original grant request. We could certainly go back to them and ask them to see if
they want to come have a look at it.
want to do it.
Sure.
And all, and.
I'm not tied down to anybody. We've been tied down to somebody, and I'm just thinking that maybe.
I just want to know how far you want to go. If you want to go with just one,
Matt wants to
we
go
go
out and
with
buy a
one.
pickup truck, he's got to go get 3 estimates.
That's fine.
And
Well,
we're tying the village down to $30 million with just one opinion.
And you might as well talk to LJA, LUB's engineering company, see if they're even interested in.
I would be enamored with them.
Now, again, we don't know if they've got this
They
bandwidth.
may not have the capabilities right now or not, but for that small of a pump station, if they don't have capabilities for that, they're not going to work for LUB.
So, John, given we're at 4:45 and I think we're obligated to be out of the room, I will call for the question as amended.
Yes, I think we've exhausted the questions. So all those in favor of 78,000 for engineering for Kahiti at the vendor to be determined? 7-0.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Now I know where I'm going. Now I know how to go forward. I have no problem. That's good. That's good. No, that's fine.
With that, I will adjourn the meeting.
I second that.